All right, guys, if you like the Table Talk podcast, then you're going to love the crew. If you're struggling with trying to get through a sticking point, you're trying to figure some specific aspect of your training out that you just can't dial in, you're dealing with injuries, you're trying to figure out how to better optimize your training, all the stuff you're seeing on social media is confusing, and all you need is a little guidance and support, or just somebody to look at your lifts to make sure that they're either heading in the right direction, or if there's a weak point in the lift, they can point out what that weak point is. Well, that's what we have the crew for. So when you join the crew, you get an extra Table Talk podcast each month called the Crewcast. You also get access to our Discord community, which has a training Q&A, form checks with top coaches, mindset section, nutrition, training logs, programs, over 30 ebooks, plus exclusive ebooks just for the crew, webinars, lectures, seminars, giveaways ranging from full strength equipment. We've given away many yoke bars this year. We've given away actually pieces of strength equipment as well as accessory items, and you get exclusive crew discounts. So go to the link in the description that says join the crew, click it, join now, and start getting stronger today. America Health is a premium telehealth platform specializing in hormone optimization and preventative medicine. Are you looking to optimize your health in and out of the gym, improve recovery, sex drive, and quality of life? Have you tried speaking to your health professional about this and have gotten the cold shoulder, stereotyped, or just told as part of getting older? You just go to americahealth.com/table talk, and you can create your own lab, or you can take labs that we've had set up for them, which are based upon the same labs that I've been doing over the last 15 years. Or you can use their guided optimization. With this, they'll put you in touch with a patient care coordinator, which is actually pretty cool because you get to sit down and speak to somebody that can understand what you're looking for from hormone optimization and the preventative medicine standpoint. After that conversation, they'll determine which labs that you should and which tests you should have done, and then from there, get the labs done. They'll review those labs with you and put you in touch with one of their hormone optimization specialists that can determine which supplementation that you should use over the counter or prescription. americahealth.com/table talk. The discount code is table talk. Today's episode is brought to you by Element, a tasty electrolyte drink mix with everything that you need and nothing that you don't. In other words, no sugar, no artificial coloring, no artificial ingredients, no gluten, no fillers, and no BS. With Element, I love the watermelon. The watermelon tastes freaking awesome. I drank one pack every day, no matter what. People that train out here, it's sitting out here for them all the time. The boxes don't last very long. Right now, Element is offering Table Talk listeners a free sample pack with any purchase. That's 8 single serving packages free with any Element order. Get yours at drinkelement.com/table talk. The deal is only available through the link in the description. The other thing is, if you don't like it, you can just give it away to a salty friend and Element will give you a 100% refund. No risk, money back guarantee. Head over to drinkelement.com/table talk. It's time to sit down, keep it real, and cut the bullshit. Welcome to Table Talk. All right, guys, we're back with another episode of Table Talk. Today, my guests are J.M. Blakley and Tom Shepard. So we're just going to jump right into it. There's no need for formalities, introductions. I think this is J.M.'s 5th time being on the podcast.
Quite a few times.
And one way or another, it's probably close to your 5th, 6th,
yeah, probably
4th, 10th time being
together
on there. So you were out doing content first.
Yes, we did.
As we were doing. So what do you all do?
Today we did a live teaching. So I just went through, instead of trying to do something that was content based that could be chopped up, I did a full session of what I would do with a trainee. And we looked at, so we started with just a bare bones exercise. And then we chose the lat pull down. And I just taught it from A to Z, how I would teach it, and the method that I use to help people learn it and how to feel it and how to engage in it better. And we cut all that on, and you're going to have to chop it up into, it was like a half hour straight.
Probably more
of
even.
Good hard work. But well, it would be a session. It would be something that I would teach. So I taught it from A to Z, and then that's how I teach it. And that's how I go about it. So people can see that, and they can see the way in which I choose to coach and teach and bring people from, where they are to where I want to get them. Excuse me. And also there's some pretty good ideas in it, I think, too, about muscle contraction and the path of the work and just plain old hard work too. So we did that first, and then he's a bench press guy. He's a competitive power lifter, and he had some questions about the bench press. And there originally, we did a segment where talking about the bench shirt that he's having trouble getting to touch, and we had a discussion about that. And then I fully admitted on that like I'm fond of saying, I was educated in the late 1800s, which is true. 1990s.
It just sounds so
I was
bad.
right, but that has impact too, because
I know.
right, it's true. So things have been happening.
Oh, I
since
know.
then,
Oh, yeah,
right?
it's different.
But muscles are the same, and more importantly, people are the same. But what's different is some of this equipment, and it's so foreign to what I did and what you did with the new stuff that I didn't feel real comfortable about getting really solid advice on that. So we just talked through some partial solutions that he might have. And I'm not sure if that's too useful to him or not. But then we spent time going back, it was Tom's idea, I think, to talk about the engagement of the lats, which we were trying to get a connection to over on the lat pull down, garden variety exercise, and how that relates to engaging the lats in the bench press. And we spent quite a bit of time on that, right?
Yeah, and he's going to be sore as hell in places he didn't know he had tomorrow, I think.
Perhaps.
Where was the disconnect?
Well, I don't think there was a disconnect.
No.
So I get a lot of this, Dave, when I teach somebody how to position correctly on the bench press. Quite often, when I bench with you, JM, my back is sore than my chest. And that's true, because you have to learn to work hard to adopt a meaningful leveraged position in the bench press. And it is uncomfortable. And it is always uncomfortable. And what I like to say is that it never becomes comfortable, but it does become familiar. You learn that this is what it's supposed to feel like. And it's supposed to feel uncomfortable. If you're getting the maximum leverage you can under tons of weight, that's not a comfortable position. It's not a comfortable activity. Comfort should not be a part of the discussion, right? So you never get comfortable, but you do learn to not overflex. You learn to just hold tight enough. And so in the beginning, it is very hard to not over tighten, because you have to learn the position and getting those lats fully engaged and getting the lower back and the bottom of the lats engaged. And there's three separate portions to that I teach. And you're right, Tom, he's probably going to be extremely sore. He said he felt like, a lacrosse ball stuck behind his scapula.
Yeah.
Have you seen when they're over tight in the lats back position, shaking will result through the arms? You'll see those, even the strongest guys sometimes, have radical shaking.
Yeah. So the thing that I tried to tell him today was that it's better to be over tight now in the beginning, so that you make sure you get to the elected position correctly, and then let that loosen up over time, rather than me to be always begging for people to tighten up. So I'd prefer overly tight, overly using the lats. And we talked about that. They don't get a lot of use. Nobody on the planet has ever needed stronger lats to bench press. That's not a thing that is true. The lats are behind the body. They're not in the front of the body. They have no possible way of moving the humerus in the positive stroke of the bench press to lift the weight. Nobody has ever lifted a pound in the bench press with their lats. The lats are behind. What they do is they row. They pull weight towards your body. They don't push weight away. They can't. They're not in the position. That's not what they do. So if somebody is flexing their lats super hard, they're literally, not figuratively or theoretically, they are literally pulling against something that they want to push. And they're fighting themselves. So the trick or the understanding that you have to get to is, yes, we need to engage the lats. We need to engage the lats. Why? Not to lift the weight, but to hold the position on the bench. And once you have locked in the position on the bench press with the lats, they're done. They don't do any more. And it doesn't take hundreds and hundreds of pounds. You don't have to double your strength to be able to pull your shoulders down. You just got to remember to keep your shoulders down and the scapula depressed and the scapula retracted during the stroke and not over travel with the bar. So that's the job of the lats is not to lift, but to hold.
I think just going back to what you said about like you'd rather him be too tight now. I think that, there are similarities there between like what Dave has spoken about with like, how do you know what RPE is until you do an actual 10, right? Now you have a flag in the sand, as it were, to compare back to. If you teach him too tight, he knows where 100% is, and he knows when he's doing his speed work, where 60% is. He knows where 70% is, but if he doesn't know where 100% is, you're just wandering around in the dark, right? And I think even from like a motor learning point of view, what he's felt today with you purposely making him over tight and all the sensations that come with it and the soreness that will follow tomorrow, from a learning perspective, that's probably going to be a much stronger anchor than if you'd come in and have him just dial that up to 6 out of 10. Would you agree with that?
I'd rather back off than push forward.
Yeah.
And it's not, so I didn't ask him to over tighten. I didn't mention that at all. I didn't say harder, tighter. I just told him to get in position and hold that position. And so he automatically was over tightening just to get into the position. I didn't have to encourage that at all. Yeah. So he will learn over time and practice that I don't have to work really hard. Nothing in the bench press is trying to move my elbows out. The weight's pushing straight down to the floor.
Yeah.
What force in the world is moving my elbows out? There's nobody pushing on my elbows to get them to fly away from my.
Yeah.
Where's that force coming from?
And do you
Nowhere. What it's coming from is people's deltoids.
Yeah.
I'll answer my own question. Sorry. Tom. It's coming from their deltoids pulling out and their lats not keeping it in. Now, that's not the weight. That's not a battle that they're having with the weight. That's a battle they're having with their position and their leverage. And so all they need to do is keep their damn elbows from flaring. Well, what does that? The lat pulls that back in. And so we took the first thing we did, which was teach how to feel the lats in the regular garden variety lat pull down and how to start thinking about them. And then we moved that on your advice to the bench press to take that understanding of how to be in tune with the lats, how to feel them, how to pay attention to them, and then to position in a stroke that would be beneficial for the bench press and hold that position. And over time, he'll learn not to flex so hard.
So I was going to ask, so do you see that as like a learned motor skill then? So like today, like you said, when you were setting him up, he only had 0 or 100. Like if he did what you asked him to do, he could only do 100, right? So do you think then adjusting that dial is essentially like a motor skill that then once he practices, you'll learn how to just tweak that tension up and down?
Yeah, and I don't think he has to think about it much. So I don't remember ever telling anybody that they need to back off on that after they understand that they don't have to it's not part of the lift. Your lat strength isn't part of the bench press. Your lat strength and your lat engagement is only to hold the position. And once that becomes the goal of the lat engagement, and you engage, you lift, you engage your lats a lot when you bench, but that's just to hold the position. It's not to lift. It's not during the power stroke. None of the power or strength from muscles in the lats getting shorter transfers to the bar, moving the bar up. That would, the more you hold back, and that's that shaking. People are fighting against each other. They're pushing and pulling and pushing and pulling. And that's good for stability. And so we didn't even mention this, but having some tension in the lats, some engagement, stabilizes that scapula some. But if you over tighten, if you overwork, and he was doing that just because he had never done that, that will he'll back off that naturally, I believe. It's been my experience that I don't have to tell people to do it. Now, Dave, you're telling me that you've seen people that are over tightening because they think someone has told them that they need to lift with their lats and engage those lats, and the lats pushed, and that doesn't happen. It can't. In fact, if you do, you fight yourself, and you get that, what you were mentioning, you get that
it's almost like a
fighting
friction.
yourself, and that shaking, and that's not going to help you lift a bench. So all you want the lats to do is be engaged enough to hold a good scapular position, engage the lower back to get the best arch, and make sure that they're depressed so that you don't lose power up the bench when you push, that it goes this way. And that's as tight as they ever need to be. You don't need to double somebody's lat strength or get 10% stronger. Everybody is already strong enough in the lats. Now, I'm not saying don't do lats when you bench press, because you want to balance that strength on both sides of the joint. I'm not saying that. Go ahead and get stronger. But that's not going to help you lift the weight. That may help you. If I double your lat strength, Tom, then for you to hold still, you have to try half as hard.
Mm-hmm.
So when I take a golfer and I strengthen their grip, you definitely don't want to over grip on the golf club. Mm-hmm. You don't want that to be, you don't want to bear down on a golf club. But if I double your strength, you can literally send less to that and hold the appropriate grip.
Yep.
So getting stronger in golfing with the grip, it doesn't really help you hold the club, but it helps you relax and have the same grip on the club, same strength on the club, but you're not trying as hard anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happens, Dave, with this. You learn to, I'm saying you can still strengthen lats, because that all you have to do is resist this lifting, elevation of the scapula, protraction of the shoulder, and drifting of the elbow out. That's all lat and teres mediated.
Well, there would be an isometric component of that.
It is isometric, Dave.
Right? Because they're going to have to be strong enough to hold that for a set of 5.
Yeah.
Which could be, 3-4 seconds per rep. So now you got an isometric contraction of, say, 25 seconds for one set, which they may not be strong enough to do, because on a typical lat exercise, how long are they actually holding that isometric position, unless it's being programmed in specifically for that, which I don't know if that's really necessary or not, because you can develop that on the bench press over a period of time, but it can be a limiting factor for some, minor, limiting for few, right? But a lot of people like to see that and say, oh, that's my limiting factor.
Right.
Coaches especially like to make shit up. That's a limiting factor, so you need to put this exercise in and hold that isometric static position for 15 seconds, because if you're not strong enough to do that,
Dave, I think something that you said there is really worth us exploring together, and that is coaches like to make stuff up. And what is the limiting factor? And so I have athletes that have access to the internet.
I would assume so.
Yeah, and therein lies a problem, right? So therein lies a problem, right? They're getting information that is less than accurate. And in many cases it is inaccurate, and sometimes it is detrimental. So I had a session on last Saturday, and we turned it around, had a PR. But between set 3 and 4, there was a drop off. And I'm like, what caused that? And the first 3 things that the athlete reported to me, I know what I did wrong. If I just do this, I'm like, nope, that's not it. That's not what the problem was. Well, maybe this might have been the problem too, because I'm like, nope, not the problem again. Right? Here's what your problem was. And I told him exactly what the problem was. But he wanted to talk about these other little things. He was talking about his grip and where the bar was. And I'm like, that's not what caused the drag on your left side. And we had this discussion. And I tried to walk him through separating out things that happen that are not worth us spending energy on. So maybe he had his grip not quite correct. And so he wanted to talk about that. And you know what he didn't want to talk about? The real problem. And for him, his real problem, he was in a horrible, horrible accident. And his whole left side was damaged. And so he loads the bar. He takes it out of the rack. I don't want to bump this, but he takes it out of the rack, of course. And he does his reps. But when he puts it back in the rack, the collar is always hitting. And we have to move it back over. Because what he does is he shifts the bar. So he'll take it out of the rack straight, and then he'll do the first rep. But by that time, it's over here. He's loading that side. Mm-hmm. He's loading that side every time. And I don't mean most times. I mean every time we put the bar back in the rack, we had to pull it back this way. Now he knows this, right? We talked about it. We even took some center lines. We put some on the chalk on the top of the power rack and some chalk on the center of the bar, and we're trying to, use peripheral vision to keep that from drifting. But there's a reason that he has that problem, right? He had a terrible accident, and he's doing great. He set a PR, and things are going really good. And he's looking for another meet. In fact, he did so well. He's like, I should do a meet. And I'm like, yeah, okay. So things are going well, but here's his mind. It's distracted on something that isn't the problem, and he doesn't want to deal with the real problem. Here's the real problem. This is why your left arm was dragging, because you're shifting the bar over here. And he wants to talk about how he had the grip wrong, and then he talks about his feet and this. And so this is distraction. And the internet is an enormous source of distractions. And coaches saying something to say something, and not addressing and focusing the energy of the athlete and the training session on the problem. Right? Mm-hmm. And this is a huge danger. Yeah. And it's something that I don't know, and I'm not sure if he got it from the internet or not, but people in general, when they know there's a problem and it's going to be hard to fix, sometimes they drift and they talk about this instead of this, because this is going to be hard to fix. He had a terrible accident, right? It's going to be hard to fix that. It's going to take effort, and so why don't I talk about this? Let's try to fix this grip. And that is a situation that we have to circle them back. I've been saying that a lot. Circle back. We got to bring them back to their problem. But he really wanted to talk about. He's like, well, let me tell you what I felt. And I'm like, okay, I'll listen to what you felt, but that's not your problem. Let's get to this problem. He's like, do you want to know how I feel or not? You're always telling me to tell you how you feel. And I said, yes, I do want to know how you feel, but not about that. That's not our problem.
Yeah. I was going to say, in those scenarios, how often has the athlete ever brought up a problem that would be more effort to fix than the real problem? Doesn't happen, right? The thing that they're going to come up with is what if I just put this left hand, rather than evening out, I could just put this arm 1/8 of an inch wider to compensate, or whatever, or this foot out wider. Yes, right. And you're like, sure, you could cheat the system.
Let's worry on
real
about
quick.
That.
But yeah, you're just going to distract from this thing over here that's hard.
As I hear you say that, Tom, it occurs to me that is precisely what happens in relationships. Mm-hmm. Here's the problem we're having. Mm-hmm. So let's fight about this or that or this or that.
I mean, I think that's just probably human nature in every relationship, right?
And it's with problem solving. And so a good coach and somebody who wants to get at the root of things has to be able to help redirect and circle them back to deal with the real problem. And I wanted to honor, he really wanted to tell me about his grip.
Yeah.
Right? He really wanted to. And maybe his grip was, but I said, what if we fix that grip 100%? Would that have fixed this problem?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, just
and it wouldn't, because it wasn't the source of the problem, right?
Absolutely.
So we could spend time thinking about it, talking about it, discussing it, or we could spend time in mental energy. And my athletes only have so much mental energy per session.
For sure.
And that's about 90 minutes. And that's the best you can get.
Yeah. Just to kind of like give maybe a poignant example of that actually was yesterday or the day before. Client of mine went to a new gym. He's not been training consistently for a few weeks, so he just did like a basic strength skill session, like doubles at 75% or whatever, and got the videos, and it's, the equipment's not very good, the bar is slipping on my back, the bench is a different height, everything didn't move as I like, blah blah blah. And there was probably 5 or 6 different "this is why shit didn't go well" things, right? And this is maybe a bit too hard hitting, but I said to him, was all those things the problem, or is it the fact that currently one of your family members is very, very ill and potentially terminally ill, and you're dealing with that every day right now, and you're on the other side of the country? And there was an "oh fuck" moment, and then we had a very long narrative about that, and there was what I hope will be a very positive conclusion about that. But he reeled off 5 or 6 things that just were completely superficial and probably had zero impact, because he knows, really, he just didn't want to actually say, you know what, this is weighing on my mind way more than I think, and I'm not dealing with it the way that I think I do or should. So it just took me to say that. There's a good chance he could have turned around and slapped me in the face, so to speak, but it's just, I think that's just a great example of people maybe manufacturing superficial problems to hide real problem, if you like.
And I think that was very well said, Tom. And I commend you for being human enough and being a whole person enough to recognize that the things that we do in the gym aren't all solvable in the gym.
Yes.
And you're suggesting that here's the real problem. And man, it's a shitstorm.
Could also be manufacturing problems that he can easily fix because he can't fix the other thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that feels like a quick win, right? And it feels like, I'm in control of stuff now. Because I these little things with the grip and the slippy bar,
but
I can
even
chalk
fixing
this.
them, right? Even fixing those little things that aren't the problem doesn't get us doesn't get us to deal with the emotional baggage that we're bringing into the gym.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you could fix them all. You could fix all those things he mentioned. One at a time, knock them off the list and do them all right, get them all right. And then that doesn't do anything about what he's bringing in the gym.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I say this a lot, and I think I've said it on this podcast a lot. Happy people train harder.
Yeah.
And what that also means is the converse. Miserable, unhappy people are relegated to pure discipline to make themselves come and train. And those people will do exactly the bare minimum of what you expect, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
If you want athletes to go above and beyond, you better talk to them about being happy and getting things settled in their life.
Yeah.
Because if not, you can get really disciplined athletes to give you what you need. They'll do the bare minimum, and then they'll go home, and they'll fight through it. And good, high quality, disciplined individuals and strong individuals can do that. And so they will make progress, but they won't make as much progress as a dude that is chomping at the bit to get to the gym, and he can't wait to be there, and he loves being there. And when the workout is over, he doesn't really want to leave. He's sad that it's over. I'm having such a good time at the gym. All my sets are done. I'm finished for today. And those guys, you know what they do sometimes? They hang around and talk to other people. They like being there. They're happy to be there. They're not miserable. And so your example is very accurate, I think. is what we deal with as coaches. And what most coaches, not you, right? You saw through that, but most coaches don't want anything to do with any of that emotional stuff that people carry. They're just sets and reps and discipline. And that is good. And most people don't have enough of that. But if you want to take people and make them their best, then the coach has to see what you saw and be willing to go there with them. And I don't know what you talked about, but that's no fun, right?
No, absolutely not. But that's kind of going on that tangent, but on a slightly less morbid way, I suppose. When you were with Steve over there showing him the lat pull down, what I liked about what you did was, here's 20 minutes me showing you the technique that I believe is the optimal way to perform the lat pull down. And you did all of that, broke it down step by step, had him perform it how you believe it to be optimal. But your finishing point of this discussion was, now do a set how you want to do it. Try and integrate what I have said without taking your natural, for want of a better word, mannerisms, whatever, out of the exercise so that you still enjoy performing the exercise. And I think that's something that you don't see enough of, not just in there. Obviously it's a technical thing, but even in programming, right? We get too caught up in optimal and not enough in, in reality, the best results usually lie halfway between what's theoretically optimal and what motivates them the most, because then you get motivation and semi-optimal, and that generally is going to give you the best long-term results, right? So I thought that was interesting how you approach that.
I'll even follow you all the way down that rabbit hole. I'll go all the way down, and here's optimal and what I want you to do and what I think you should do, and here's where you're highest motivated. I'll go almost all the way over here. You give me a motivated athlete that's doing an exercise suboptimally, and you let him pour his heart and soul into every rep of every set, week after week, workout after workout, month after month. And even though he wasn't optimal, right, where I want him doing this, but he hates doing it that way. So I let him do it the way, I get him as close as I can to it, right? That's what I thought. I get him as close as I can to that, where I think he should be, right? But I don't want to take him so far away from that. I love doing it like this, JM. I just like doing it like this. I like the way this feels. All right, so take these new ideas. I think what I told him. Take these new ideas and go ahead and see, and put them to work in the thing that you like to do. And he'll get, and people will go farther with that. So we don't get a lot of athletes to go all the way. That's just sad. I see potential in people, and I rarely get them to where I see they could go. And that's sad, but that's okay. So everybody's going to end up on some part of their journey of where, Dave, they would have been the very best they could have been, and where they kind of run out of steam with their job and their kids and their health and their age and their injuries and they end up somewhere, right? And so if we're always thinking, I got to treat this person like they're gonna be the best athlete. I got to put them on an Olympic cycle, 4 years. I got to think 4 years ahead of time so I can get them ready for that moment, right? I see the benefit of thinking that way, because that's the best way to do it. That's that optimal you were talking about here. But that's not very motivating it's not very motivating. How about this, Tom? To get a kid who comes in and say, we're not going to lift anything heavy until you learn how to do this properly. We're going to do all technique all the time for 4 months. You're not going to pick up any of the heavy weights. You're going to be using the chrome weights and an empty bar.
How many sessions are they showing up to?
Where's the motivation, right? So we have to play that game that you're talking about. And I think it's fine. I'm willing to go way over here towards motivation even. I would like to convince them to climb over here towards optimal, where we want them. And I give them good reasons, and I tell them my rationale why they should put in more time on technique than on training sessions, but in the beginning till they get their technique. But that's hard to do.
Well, in that scenario, I would see that as they don't have a clearly defined objective, right?
Well,
because they've done it before. A kid goes into high school, they're in 9th grade, they realize they're going to graduate after grade 12. That's a quadrennial.
Yeah.
That's 4 years. They've kind of bought into that. They go into college, well, not all because people drop out, but they go into college and they realize, this is going to be 4, 5, whatever years.
Yeah.
They've done that before. Here's the objective. The objective is that degree. That's what I want to be able to do. So they have the mental capacity to do that with an elite total or a bench press or a certain career, or whatever it's going to be, but they don't recognize that they've been down this road successfully before and can't make that connection from that. So then they fall into, but I want this in 8 weeks.
Yeah.
While at the same time, they're in college working for a degree that's going to take 5 years. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Where it mentally, it's like, in my brain, I'm like, how do you not see this? Like this path that you're on of strength is actually harder in the long term than a degree.
Yeah.
You know, I guess depending on the degree, but actually I'm still going to say that, right? Because I mean, if they had big all-time world record goals or big aspirational goals that only the top 0.002% will ever achieve, I don't understand the mindset of that urgency for something that they know they're not going to break an all-time world record from starting powerlifting 3 years ago in a year.
Yeah.
I suppose there might be outliers to that, but generally no. You know, so it's there. So then when you circle back on how important is that objective really, then you find out they just love training hard. It's not about the all-time world record or the competing or whatever it's going to be. And that's fine. You know, that's okay. Then you can train that way, but don't expect the result that is here
for sure.
from that. Because if you do end up getting that result in 4 or 5 years, it's accidental. It's not intentional. That makes sense?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I followed every part of it, but I find myself, Dave, torn between teaching the absolute best to a very beginner even, right? I want you to do the best thing. I don't want you to waste any time in the gym. I want you to do it the best way right now. But then the truth is they don't need the best. They
don't.
There's only a few people. So everybody comes on here who's been a lifter and on the internet, and they talk about their program, but do they talk about the first year that they trained? Never. They talk about the program that got them to their pinnacle, right? This is what I did when I was at my best, right? Well, that's useful as a lens to look, but I can't follow that program. I just started. What did you do your first year? What did you do your second year? How did you progress from the beginning of your training, in my case it was all bodybuilding, to this other thing? Talk about that and the transitions. And I had a trainee tell me that I should probably talk about this a little bit if I could. So I'm always torn between wanting to give every person the very best routine. Top flight, top quality, right? Best I got, best diet I got. Guess what? The best diet I got is the hardest diet. It's the best one. It works like crazy. It melts body fat off. But it's the hardest one. It's the toughest one. And I want to give everybody that one, but I can't do that. And I am torn. I struggle with remembering. I need to remember that, and I do okay. I'm not lost in this. I'm not, but I always want to move them towards these more effective programs. But those are inevitably ones that require a shitload more recovery ability. and they don't have it. They don't put anything into their recovery. These better programs that I want to give them in the gym require much better nutrition. These programs that I want to push them and I want to give them because they're so effective and efficient, they require an enormous amount more mental discipline and focus. So the best I got to give them, and I always want to do that for people, isn't what they can swallow.
Well, I think the commonality of all those lifters that you're talking about that, if they've been on a podcast or at the higher level, is they made a lot of mistakes in the beginning, right? And they learned from them.
Absolutely.
Right. So they learn from them either personally or training partners or coaches or whatever it's going to be. And they fail forward, I guess is what I'm trying to say there.
Yeah, right.
And
I like that too.
as we all did, where
fail forward.
Yes. And that's part of the process, because maybe they're not ready yet. They don't have the mental capacity, and they probably don't even have the physical work capacity to put the effort out for what they have. But if they're not changing what they know doesn't work, this is where they get caught. Most people.
Say that again.
Changing what they know doesn't work.
So they're doing something and it's not working.
It's not working, but they think it will work the next time. Right. So if it's an old school 12-week linear Western method period,
it's about to kick in.
It's going to work the next time. Right. The drugs are going to work better next time.
Week,
it's just
about to kick in.
And it's this revolving cycle around this repetitive failing and not fixing that leads into that spiral. Then they get locked in their own dogma, especially if they're coaching other people. I can't do anything different than this because this is what I tell other people to do. And if I don't do that, then, that's where they go.
Yeah.
That's my view.
Do you think that's where, sorry, this is a slight kind of backtrack, I'm sorry, but
go ahead.
Where remembering that as a coach, optimal is a contextual and fluid construct or
subjective
principle. So what I mean is you get that kid in on day one, his level of investment is 40%, what arbitrary. The program that's optimal for someone who's invested at 40% is going to look different to the program. But that kid might climb up the all-in ladder over time, right? So I think that's where it's important as a coach to kind of be able to gauge it, because everyone says they want stuff, but you can usually tell by their actions and how they approach things early on how much they really want, what it is they talk about. So if you can assess that and kind of assess their level of buy-in in an honest way, then what's optimal. And that's when it's like, well, this is the best diet physiologically, but this is the best diet for you because you'll have adherence.
Yeah. So you're matching their capacity with the challenge.
Yeah, and it's not even physical capacity at that point. It's mental capacity, willpower, whatever it is you want to call it. This is how much buy-in you have. It's like a tube of toothpaste. Once you squeeze it all out, you're done. So this is probably what's best for you now because adherence and commitment is going to be the overarching thing, right?
That's a good point about the fluidity of optimal, right? And matching those the capacity with the challenge that you ask them to do.
Sometimes you just got to sit back and watch it burn.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's hard.
I know, but you see what's happening, right? And you try, but then it's not. Then the only way this will ever change is once it burns. Yeah, and you just sit back and watch the fire. I mean, it's fun to watch fires burn, right? Yeah, so you just watch the fire burn, and then it hits. And sometimes it's because people are just not making progress and they're caught up in that dogma. But sometimes they're making phenomenal progress, and it's stupid what they're doing. And it's like, well, they're not going to listen, so just this too shall stop. Yeah. And then when it does, the person will be ready for the message. Until then, it's just wasted energy on a coach's part or anybody else's part to try to help, because normally there's other people that would really like the help. That person then is stealing that time away from somebody else because of that. And God, I see that a lot.
Oh, I'm sure you get the person with terrible squat form who comes to you like, Dave, I'm going to run small off. And you're like, man, this is a bad idea. And you're like, I don't think this is a good idea. It's like, I'm going to do it, Dave. And I'm going to put 50 pounds on my squat. And you're like, okay, well, come to me in 12 weeks at the
and maybe
end.
they will.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe they will, but at some point it all stops.
Yeah.
Right. That's what happens.
Yeah.
Right? And then after that, they grow. They die or grow. They do something else, which is fine. Or they
unfortunately, it's a lot of times they die,
Mm-hmm.
or they decide that they have hit their limit. And in bench press, that happens. Raw bench press, about 3 to 350. Everybody who's serious and committed gets there. And then there's not a lot of people that get to 375, 405, and even fewer, 4 1/4, 450. And so practically everybody, and quite frankly, a 350 bench press is all you'd ever need to play any sport and do anything.
Mm-hmm.
But so it's good enough. But you're right. They can get to that level doing things wrong, right? And you could let them. But it's just that I'm just mentioning how hard it is to see people flounder
Mm-hmm.
of their own accord. But I was telling a story about the guy that just wanted to do things because he liked doing them his way, didn't want to do them. I offered some help in the gym, and he said, "No, thanks." I said, "What?" He said, "Doing it your way is probably going to be a lot harder, JM, and I'm going to have to use a lot less weight. So I just like doing it my way. No, thank you." And he was doing fine, right? But he was never going to be his best. He was never going to get past that place.
Mm-hmm.
But he was okay with that. And so I guess what I was saying when I said I'm torn is I got this thing in me that's always running. And I need to beat it in check. Is that I always want everybody to be doing their best at all times. And maybe not everybody needs that, right? Maybe not everybody needs to always be doing their best. And I have to come to grips with that. And so, I think I'm doing okay at it because I have lots of ways to do. I mean, I've trained housewives and children and everything, so I know how to do this. But I'm just saying as a coach, and I'm kind of trying to steer this conversation more towards coaching today.
Yeah.
I had that plan in mind, Dave. I just wanted to talk as much as I could anytime I can sneak in how a coach looks at it. And for me as a coach, one of my great challenges is difficult, and I wish I was a little bit better at it, is separating out the championship coaching at an elite level with competitive coaching at a non-elite level. And I struggle with that. I always want to go to what I think is optimal. And that's not going to hurt anybody moving in that direction. But sometimes I feel that I guess cognitive dissonance between, just why don't these people want to do their best? Why can't I get them to do it? And on some level, perhaps I feel like, trying to be honest here, I feel like maybe I've failed. Why can't I get these people to fully commit? Why? What's the problem here, right?
Well, in their mind, they may be fully committed.
Good point, Dave. In their mind, yeah. And so I've been doing that. I've been trying as a coach to get in their mind and see their perspective more and more, right? And that's all helpful. But I just thought I would mention that. Since you brought up that thing about that, I wanted to talk about, and that tied in with your optimal versus motivation. And I think that was a good way.
Well, everybody's going to be restricted by their own self-limiting beliefs.
I've been talking about mine.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about mine.
Well, that's the same thing. It plays out the same way, no matter what that is. It's acknowledgement of it would be the first step, right?
Yeah. We can't do this unless we're going to go all in.
Yeah. And do you really want? And do you really want to? Right? I mean, there's that other thing. Do you really want to? Like, is that that important that it's worth mastery of that craft? Maybe not. You can't master every craft. I wish we could.
But that,
maybe with Neuralink we can, but at this point, we're not going to master every craft.
the question I would ask you would be, how many years, decades, whatever, did you spend putting effort into cultivating a mindset, which is to get every single marginal gain that you could? How much of your life have you spent with that attitude?
So I can tell you about every phase of my life, from my education to my work history to my gym things. And man, have I been a lucky bastard.
Mm-hmm.
Just lucky. Lucky I had the people around me that I had. Lucky to get invited places that I didn't belong. Mm-hmm. Right? The West Side Barbell Club. I got invited to go there. Mm-hmm. I didn't belong there. And I've had all this luck. And here's another lucky thing. I'm going to answer that question with, I was lucky because I started my original journey in Nautilus training. Mm-hmm. One set to failure, giving it all you got. That's how I started. Mm-hmm. I was taught that effort is
the currency.
King.
Yeah.
It's the currency. Mm-hmm. It's the currency of success. And it's not wrong. Mm-hmm. But if you're only going to do one set, and that's your workout, there's a great risk there. Mm-hmm. There's a great risk that you give 97%.
And you get very little
and
back.
You don't get, yeah. If you give 100%, and that's the margin too. Mm-hmm. It's very strange. It's not like if I give 50%, I get half the results. If I get 75%, I get 75% of the results. And I tell people this: if you do everything I tell you, you'll get 100% of what I promise. If you do 80% of what I tell you, you'll get half.
Yeah.
And if you do 75 or less, you'll get nothing. Mm-hmm. And so I was taught early on that effort and mindset has to be right. Don't start this. You're about to do 8 to 12 reps. Mm-hmm. So get right with God, get right with yourself, and get yourself in a mental place to give it all you've got. Mm-hmm. And you're going to expire on 8, 9, 10, 11. And if you make 12, we're going up next week. And I started the journey that way. What luck to be taught right off the bat that hard work is really the answer. And it's not sets and reps and one set to failure or 3 sets of 10 or, the DeLorme method and all these things. Those are wonderful structures. But none of them are more important than putting your whole heart and soul into what you do.
Absolutely.
And so I was lucky. Mm-hmm. I've done it my whole career.
So you've spent decades cultivating that mindset, right? So then what I'm saying is, when you're dealing with individuals who are not, let's say soccer moms, kids, whatever, they're there to keep their blood pressure or their cholesterol in check, whatever. It shouldn't really surprise you that you're not on the same page, because you shouldn't be, right? Because to be at the level that you got to and cultivate the mindset you did, you have to take a different path to what average person takes,
sure,
especially within the realm of physical fitness.
Here's the good news about that, though. So a person that is strong can lift heavy weights, but they can also lift light weights. A person who is weak cannot lift heavy weights. They can only lift light weights. And this is true about everything. A smart person can pretend to be stupid, but a stupid person can't pretend to be strong. So if I choose to, and if I remember to, and if I'm vulnerable enough with the people and I want to be in their space, I can think back, right? I don't have to always think like, I'm going to try a world record. I can think back to where they might be. I can imagine that, because I've been weak before, and now that I'm strong, and I've been in a place where it was a struggle to come in and do workouts, right? And so I hope that when I do that, when I back down, when I play dumb or play weak or move my mindset back to where they are, I can imagine what it's like to be there. So somebody that can appreciate more things can always appreciate less.
Yeah.
If they choose to. And then there's this strange phenomena that happens that I try to protect myself against. And I think that maybe that's what I was talking about, is this condescension that I'm an elite coach and I don't want to think like a beginner and that's something that I don't think I have a problem with it, but I think that might be what I was talking about was I'd like to spend all my time up here, but I need to come down here.
Yeah.
I need to back off. I need to be able to, and I think that it's true that if a person wants to understand that level, they can.
Yeah, sure.
They don't have to always be Joe superstar.
Yeah.
I have a story of when that resonated with me at a personal level is, forever ago. I went to a live Tony Robbins event, like Awaken the Giant with whatever it was, right? And at the end of the first day, we're there forever, right? So it's like after like 8 hours, he starts preparing everybody to do this firewalk thing, right? So it starts with everybody just like you would be pre-football game in the locker room, just getting all jazzed up. I'm like, all right, okay, cool. Then that stops. That's like a half hour of that shit. Then you're laying on the floor and you're visualizing. This hype shit is going on for like 2 hours, right? Now it's like 8, 9, 10. It's getting close to like 10 o'clock. And I'm at this point, I'm fucking frustrated. Like, I just want to leave. I'm tired. I've been here all day. I don't give a shit about this firewalk crap. This up and down shit is annoying. So then it was everybody get up again, high five and all this kind of like, okay, we're going to go now. Nope, back on the floor. Visualize. And I looked at the dude next to me because now I'm tired. It's late. I'm like, you know what? I don't want to feel like a wimp, but I think I'm going to bolt out of here because this is kind of bullshit. I'm tired. I don't care. Whatever. I'm like, all I need to do is put me in front of this stupid fire thing, give me 3 minutes to hit an ammonia cap or act like I hit one, and I'm going. It's not a big deal. And the guy looks back to me and he says, Dave, you understand that the majority of the people here have never wrestled, they've never played football, they never powerlifted, they've never got psyched up to do anything in their entire life. And then it hit me like, you're right. Like, I could have done this. Just lay it out and just go, right? Whatever. Because I'm processing, like there's no way it's going to burn people's feet. There's like 1,000 people here. The liability is through the roof. This is not really a risk as I'm processing all this. Just go do it. But that's probably one of the biggest lessons I took away from that was, you know what? Most of these people probably needed that. Yeah. To be able to get to that state, to be able to do it. To me, it was just frustrating the shit out of me, where I got to a point I would have been completely fine just leaving and have it, but I didn't want everybody to think, look, that guy's scared to walk on fire, right? You don't want that. So there was that social pressure.
You were having that cognitive dissonance.
Yeah. But then I became very aware of it.
Yeah.
Because then I left there and I thought, you know what? Yeah.
We need to be able to walk back down and walk people back up with us up the hill. And you're right. Those people probably had never pushed themselves at anything. I mean, can you imagine that, Dave? No, you can't.
No, I can't.
No, you can't. You have to. In fact, you have to imagine it, because at this point, you have pushed yourself through so many things with your kids and with your business and with lifting and with just life. You have pushed at that edge, right? And that's just normal to you. There are so many people that have a life that is so different than that. And no parent ever asked them to push. And every time they struggled to get up on the playground thing, the parents ran over there and lifted them up. And they got up on the thing. And they didn't have to learn that from day one. And there's a lot of them out there. We've made life really, really cheap and easy. And that doesn't really happen in here. If you want progress in here, it's not cheap and it's not easy. And that's a break. That's a separation from the world that's out there. That they are doing everything they can to make it cheaper and easier for us.
But I see that two ways, right? I see that in the conspiracy theory way, where it's bad and fucked up, right? So I get that. Probably agree with that 51%. But the other 49% sees that as what an amazing opportunity for somebody that's coming up. because now you can Instacart. You don't have to go to the grocery store. Right. So now in 5 minutes, I can order my groceries and not have to go and take an hour. That just freed up an hour of my time. You know, a lot of the other things, you order shit online, it's delivered. So that just freed up more of my time.
Okay.
So now I have so much more available free time.
To do what? There, now.
Yes, that's the opportunity. That's the opportunity, because you could educate yourself. You can learn more skills. You have so much more time to actually better yourself.
Yeah.
Or you can Netflix and chill and scroll.
Right.
But that's a choice.
Yes.
That's an individual choice. Right. So when, you know, I got all these notes on Stoics and shit like that. Like, how would they see all this?
Yeah.
You know, how would they see all this? And, you know, that's a conversation we're going to have. But there is that side there. Like, you can now, because of all the things that we used to have to do that took time, you don't have to use that time. That's available.
Okay.
Right. But you have to control the inputs.
Yeah.
I said that.
And if you don't, somebody else will.
That's very optimistic, Dave.
Yeah.
I'll give you
I said that to someone the other day, actually, as, you know, kind of like, you know, when you have general conversation with people, we have more time-saving devices now than ever, and yet no one seems to have any time.
Yeah.
But it's like, well, what are you doing with it? Because there's still 24 hours in the day, and last I checked, you can get a lot more done now than you could whenever. But I think the problem lies now in, is there are way too many easy choices to get some kind of shallow fulfillment.
Easy choices or lack of discipline?
Well, I think one breeds the other, perhaps, you know, in that, why would I go to the gym and slave away, even if that's the correct choice, inverted commas, when I'm being told 24/7 that my issue is I need to consume more. I need to eat more, buy more, fuck more, whatever it is. That's why my life hasn't got the
fuck
fulfillment.
more's good.
Yeah, you get what I'm saying, though, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's why you're not happy. You haven't got the latest Mountain Dew flavor and whatever. So why would I pick the hard option when there are such a plethora of easy options just branded in front of my face constantly? And then I think everyone's subconsciously aware that they're doing it, right? Probably to a degree if they sat down, but we've created a society where it's so easy to make what, inverted commas, is the wrong choice, that it takes a lot more willpower probably now to make the right choice, perhaps.
Tom, it's easy to get more cheap shit. It's easy to get more easy, crummy stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening. They're taking that time and they're getting more stuff that isn't worth a damn. They're not taking all that time and building something of quality. So yeah, it's cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And it's cheaper and cheaper and cheaper.
But the ones that choose the other path are the ones that are going to be more successful, no matter how you want to define that.
They're going to have something of value. They're going to have something that isn't cheap. They're going to have something that cost. It's something that had expense. I watch these videos sometimes of these Japanese people that build houses with no nails or nothing. It's just all wood. And they make these crazy interlocking pieces, and they pound them, and the whole house is pounded together with friction, and these interlocking joints that they make out of, and they don't use a bandsaw or a drill. They use hand tools and their hands. Now they are making something that's a house that people could live in. But that's not the same house as gets thrown together in these cul-de-sacs around here in days. I also watch videos about guys that inspect those houses and how crappy they're built, right? And it's just amazing. So yeah, if you want a bigger house that's shitty and paper thin, you can have more of that. I'll sell you a house here, and I'll make you another house. I'll make you a guest house in the back out of that crappy shit. And I'll make it cheap for you. Or you could have this little thing that's built by this Japanese dude that has something that house doesn't have. Now, we could talk about what that is, but nobody's going to argue that house has something that these giant paper-thin mansions have. They're like, oh, it's the same thing. Keeps the rain off. There's a different quality of life when you choose hard things that are expensive. and maybe you don't get as much.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the Finnish people are pretty good about this. They don't have a lot of shit. They don't have a lot of possessions, but they have nice things. They don't have a lot of clothes. They have a few really nice clothes, and they wear them over and over and over again. They wear nice stuff all the time, not T-shirts all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll get another T-shirt for $6, and I'll get another T-shirt for $6, and I have this, I don't know, I wouldn't say silk shirt, but a nice shirt, a nice woven shirt they have, right? And they have that, and they've chosen that as a general rule. They've chosen to have fewer cheap things and they don't want a lot of cheap things. They want a little bit of something expensive.
Yeah, but if we spin that all the way back, it's Epictetus, right? It's not what happens to you, it's how you react to it, right? So those philosophies still applied to modern world still resonate.
Yeah, sure. I think almost our perception of what happiness is kind of skewed now, though, because like you're saying, we're like kind of convinced that more is always the answer rather than less, if that makes sense. Like you're kind of indicating that, but at the end of the day, happiness is an emotion, a reaction, a perception of a current state, whatever you want to call it. It's temporary kind of state, and that happiness really only can exist when suffering, for want of a better word, exists, if that makes, because you can't have one without the other, because if happiness was a constant state, it wouldn't be called happiness, it would be called normal.
Yes.
So happiness is the opposite of suffering, but usually what leads to happiness is that suffering must occur in some regard. And by suffering here, we're not talking like let's say physical harm, but yeah, adversity, hard work, some kind of investment with delayed gratification, whatever that comes afterwards. But I don't know, like you go on social media now and you see 100 million people all having the time of your life, and it paints this picture of like life is just this constant stream of life giving you happiness, when in regard that isn't what it is. And the people who are truly most fulfilled and happy often have equal or more amounts of what we would call suffering, hardship, whatever, because that's what gives it meaning in the first place, right? Like if you don't have to work for something, how much fulfillment does it ever give you? If you were just handed a world record for turning up and lifting an empty bar because everyone else decided to not show up, would that really give you anything? Or if you didn't train a day in your life and you just got it by default somehow? Or is it the fact that it was the blood, sweat, and tears of training for 15 years that makes that world record actually worth having? And I think that's a little bit of what we're getting lost on now, because it is so easy to get those little cheap dopamine hits so fast that we forget that the true fulfillment, whatever, comes from the delayed gratification and comes with some kind of suffering, because there must be some kind of balance at some point, and I think that is where our perception is now way off as a society, in my opinion.
Yeah, but I don't know how much different that would be if I'm looking back through an old Powerlifting USA magazine before social media even existed. I see the meet results and I see pictures of people that are, I'm only seeing the results. I'm not seeing the adversity they had to overcome.
Yeah, I get
to be able to get there. So it's the same thing. Now the mental ability to process, if it's an Instagram clip of somebody succeeding, to be able to process, how many times do they have to film that before it looked that way? 15, 20 times. What do they have to do to be in a position to actually have that success? Yeah. That's that again falls back on that individual. But to your point, I don't think they're processing that.
No, I guess that's what I'm getting at, is that it's still there to see if you want to see it.
And you can be inspired by it, or it can crush you.
Yeah.
You can be depressed by it.
But I think it's almost like now we've painted a picture of human life that is, again, not to pick on social media particularly, but like it almost creates the illusion that human life can just be completely without hardship and suffering, and that
it practically can. It practically
is.
But then in this country.
Okay, let's go with that.
It practically is. So
but
for all intents and
how
purposes,
fulfilled is that same individual then would be the question I would put towards you usually.
So this is a sort of an argument, and we've interjected happiness too. But I think I have a way out of that. between quality and quantity, right? That was that's the original thing. And you're saying that things that you have to work for are more valuable than things that you are given.
Yes.
And I think that is true, right? I feel that to be right. I feel that in my own, life. Free, cheap things are not as much value because they are cheap. And doing hard things then is a different story. So if we follow this, what you were talking about as far as hardship and reward, if we follow that into the gym and we embrace this concept that hard things are better, and we could talk about why we think they're better, but let's just agree that hard things have the potential to be more rewarding.
Yeah.
Right? They have that potential. Then we can choose hard things because of the reward and because of the happiness that it gives and the fulfillment. And there's nothing wrong with that. But there's an escape from having to worry about that I can think of. And that escape, and it's a good conversation to have, and we could really wrench that out and get a lot out of that. But how about this too? How about I go to the gym and I choose to do hard things because of the experience that doing hard things is in and of itself, detached from the outcome. Whether I get a reward for doing a hard thing. Now, I agree with you 100% that when you do hard things, there is a reward there that just doesn't happen for doing easy things. You know, Tom, I tied my shoes this morning. Right? That's an easy thing. There's not much, but I did, right? I didn't. I got Crocs on. But I did something easy, and so what?
Yeah.
I did something hard, and it's different. But what if we don't even look at the reward or the happiness or the value in the end product, the outcome? What if we dissociate from the outcome and we just go into the gym and we tackle hard things because we are into the experience of doing hard things?
Yeah.
I agree. It makes a different man out of you. It makes a different person out of you. And I think that's a very, very good reason to do it. But I think that if I can think of myself now, I don't want any outcome in the gym, and I still go in and do hard things. And I don't want something out of it. I don't want muscles. I don't want strength. I want the experience that doing hard things is. I prefer it to doing easy, cheap things all day long. I choose to do this hard thing. Now, I don't know if that makes me a better person or it strengthens my discipline. I think that it does. But if I don't want to worry about that, I can just say, I'm going to the gym because I want the experience of what that feels like, because it's not like all these other cheap experiences. It's a different experience when you work yourself and push yourself and find something out about yourself.
I've got two angles on that. One probably more philosophical, and then one.
Well, first, can we define what hard things is?
Go ahead. You can define it.
Right, because it's what is a hard thing? Because if you're going in the gym and you're just doing what you've always done, is that really hard for you?
Nope.
It's just consistency and repetition. So
I don't think it is.
I would define it more as something that is either on the edge of or slightly beyond your capability, or something that you probably don't want to do.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Or a mix of both. So I would say on a philosophical-ish retort to that, I think doing hard things is the only way that you truly learn to trust yourself and your abilities.
I agree wholeheartedly.
In that it doesn't, you know that if you can do whatever that workout is in the gym, that squat, whatever it may be, you know that you can repeatedly go in the gym and do those hard tasks. You know that when life inevitably throws hard things at you, you have the mental ammunition, whatever machinery, to deal with those. And I think that creates a confident person in of who they are.
I couldn't agree more.
I have a skill set that allows me to deal with the hardships of life, and I'm confident that I can do that
and
well.
that still may be an outcome, Tom. as good and true as I think that
but it's
is,
not the primary focus of.
I value that.
Mm-hmm.
I value the change in the person that they have to. I value the increase in confidence in being able to trust yourself and learning to have faith in stepping out beyond your ability. That's all good, but that's another outcome. I'm going to back off of that and say, yeah, that comes along with it, but I'm just going to go choose to do hard things, because the doing of the hard thing is where I experience myself in a way that I want to experience myself. I want to be me doing life that way sometimes, and not always doing life this other way that I'm me, regardless of the outcome. There's a lot of easy things that have great outcomes. Right? I got down here because I used my GPS on my phone, and it took me right here, and it was super easy. And I didn't get a map out or nothing, and super easy and super good outcome. Here I am, right? Really good outcome. But that's a different way to experience my life. If I choose these by choice, these hard things, because life will give us hard things anyway. We don't need to always go choose them, but that does prepare us for when life throws them at us, right? And we're better for that. And I think that's valuable as well. I'm letting all that be true. And I'm saying, how about I just want to go experience my life in a way where I am operating this way, in a way that tests me, in a way that makes me try to be more. And that might be valuable enough. Everything you said.
So in that context, almost though, the process kind of is the outcome in of itself.
There you are.
Yeah, and I get that.
Welcome,
I totally get that.
to my world,
and
Tom.
I like what you were saying to Steve earlier about, because it kind of goes against the mantra most of the time, right? Where like you said, you're a process-driven person, not a goal-driven person. Because
you just said that too.
Because the goal doesn't lead to the process leads to the goal.
Very good.
I get on board with that, and I like that. Maybe I didn't verbalize it in the way that I wanted to, but I like your point.
You said all true good things that are important.
Doing hard things for the sake of doing hard things generally creates better people. And then I was going to kind of segue then into the biological viewpoint, where they've actually discovered a part of the brain now, which, and I may quote this wrong, I'm sorry, called the anterior cingulate cortex, which, for want of a better word, is almost like your willpower or your will to live. And like any part of the brain, it can hypertrophy and atrophy. And when you do hard things, or rather things you don't want to do,
that's the important thing. They're not just hard things.
No, they're things you genuinely don't want.
Things that are hard that you don't want to do.
And that makes me want to go off on a whole tangent.
Because I like to do hard things, and that part of the brain that won't be.
That won't help that, no. And that puts me off on a tangent.
You don't want to do.
All these people are like, oh, I do cold plunges because it does this. I'm like, well, if you want to do them, it's not doing that for you. But anyway, but people who repeatedly do hard things that they do not want to do, or at least partly do not want to do, grow that part of the brain, and then get better at doing things they do not want to do. So in that regard, you could then start to argue that willpower, whatever you want to call this thing that we look upon people who just seem to be able to go through life and deal with everything and whatever, it's a trained, almost biological skill set.
And that's another wonderful outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's another, you just brought up a wonderful outcome. I'm going to leave that go and be true. Right? And I'm still going to do the hard thing, even if it wasn't true, because I want to experience my life. So this is presupposing that. Comes before you get that.
Yeah.
And that is a wonderful thing to have. And it's a great outcome. And that part about, something that's hard that we don't want to do is super important to that, right? But I'm talking about right before that still. How I choose to experience life. And what this is process versus product versus outcome. I want that destination too, right? And that destination will come if I follow that path. That path leads to that destination.
Yeah.
I'm concerned with experiencing the path more than I am experiencing the view that I get when I get the outcome.
See, to me,
it's very different.
That is very reminiscent or echoes a lot of like Zazen, Zen practice and that. Yeah. And again, I think meditation is probably one of the most, and again, I'm not speaking as an expert. I'm just speaking from what I know enough to know how much I don't know is probably the only confident thing I can say here. But, you know, when I talk to clients or whatever about it, one of the first questions is usually, what's the outcome here? What am I trying to get? And I'm like, well, you've already ruined it. The doing is the thing.
Right.
You know, I could probably verbalize that a lot better, but the whole point of the meditation and the Zazen is the doing of it.
That's good, Tom.
You know, and that's kind of what to you there, that training or whatever it might be is the Zazen, the meditation in of itself, in that the doing of it is the entirety of the point, and that almost polluting it with outcomes takes away from the process of it.
Yeah. Well, I have been very, very outcome oriented, and that's been very successful. People that are goal driven tend to be really successful. But I'm just talking about something, a different way to look at it is all it is. It's you're going down the exact same path. You're doing hard things. You're choosing hard things. You're making yourself do hard things that you don't like. You're getting all those things. You go down that path. But I'm absorbing my experience in the traveling of the path. And while I'm on the path, I'm not worried about the destination. I used to be very worried about the destination every step of the journey. Where am I going? Where's my goal? My goal. And I think there's value in bringing the goal into every step, right? I teach that too. But sometimes in my life, I'll speak for myself, I was so goal driven that every step that was making me better and moving me closer to the goal, let's say it's lifting weights, 5 pounds more, 5 pounds more, 5 pounds more. I wasn't living in that. I was waiting to live until I got to the goal. Now, I knew I was getting closer, but if I'm 5 pounds closer, I can live that. Or I can just go, I got a long way to go. I still got more to go. I'm on the path, but I'm not there. And it won't count until I'm there. It doesn't count until I achieve the achievement. Then it counts. Well, it certainly counts when you achieve the achievement. But what about all that experience? All those workouts along the way until you got to the achievement. And if you follow the path, you go where the path leads. Remember that? Yeah. I think, and maybe I'm repeating myself, but I used to tell kids who were misbehaving, right? That if you stay on the path you're on, you're going to get where you're going. Yeah. And that's true of us.
Right? Well, I think from a training perspective, we need to look a little bit closer at this hard thing, right? Because if the program is you're doing 5 5s, right? The hard thing might be actually doing the 5 5s because you'd rather just do a single. Where some people would think, well, the single's way harder because it's heavier. Or if it's a percentage-based program, the hard thing would be to actually stick with the RPE or the percentage you're supposed to be training in, instead of what people may perceive as hard is going at that heavier weight, which you get what I'm saying here. So it's, for a lot of people, it's harder for them to stay within the guide rails of what that program is.
It's hard for them to exercise their discipline.
Their discipline, yes, right? So in that mental capacity, that's harder than them just freaking out and maxing out every single time.
Yeah.
But they can be misconstrued when you're saying hard things.
Yes.
Or doing things that are hard that you don't believe you can do, because then that could lead one to believe just max out every single time that you go in. And that's not hard if that's what they really want to do.
Yeah. Right. But what if we said in that context, the hard thing is not necessarily the completion of the workout, but doing the workout to the absolute highest quality, technical proficiency, best execution that you are physically capable of.
Yes.
Then that becomes that is the hard thing. Anyone can go in the gym and do their 5 by 5 at, whatever. But is it the absolute best 5 by 5 that you could produce on that given day in those current contexts. I would argue that in most scenarios is the hard thing, because again, it becomes a quality over quantity thing. And, you know, like we were having a discussion the other day, how many people, if they were a fly on the wall for their own gym session, be like, that guy's a lazy asshole. Do you know what I mean? Like, lots of people get to the gym, lots of people train consistently. Again, something you said yourself, gyms are full of people who are there consistently. Not many of them are getting results. Gyms are not full of people who are doing every session to the absolute best of their ability. And that doesn't mean the heaviest weight on the bar. It could mean the best technical execution.
And it also doesn't mean that they're not getting the results they want. But what I think it means, what I think what you just said means, is that they're missing that experience, and they could be having it.
No, and that
they
I
could
agree
be having that experience, and they're missing it. Now they're still getting all the reward. They're still getting the destination. But what about the experience?
Yeah.
That's why I said I'm a process guy, not a product guy.
Because a quote that I wanted to say when you said that was, this is from Shiheng Yishu, who runs the European Shaolin Temple. A really good quote that was in one of his talks that resonated with me was, the quality of every moment in your life is dependent on the quality you put into it. Now, if we think of that from like a training perspective, or like your perspective, where you want to do the hard thing for the hard thing's sake, everything you experience and everything you do, obviously your results from it, but also the experience of it is dependent on how present and how mindful and how your effort towards that. Do you know what I mean? You can take your dogs out for a walk with your partner and be completely oblivious and just
miss it,
shadow walk through it. Or you can stand there and admire your wife and your dogs and the scenery and be present and get home and think, oh, I'm lucky I get to do this. Or you could go through it, but you did the exact same walk with the exact same steps.
Tom, repeat that beginning of that quote again.
So the quality of every moment in your life is,
Okay, stop. I'm gonna
please.
I'm gonna stop Sensei's quote, and I'm gonna go a different direction with it, but the same direction.
Yeah.
The quality of every moment in your life determines the quality of your life when it's over.
Yes. Yeah.
That's, you build a whole lifetime
from moments.
Out of moments. You build a whole career in lifting out of workouts. You build a whole workout out of reps, out of sets. You build a whole set out of reps. And that seems like we're crawling down into the weeds, but that's what you build. Big things are built of little things. That wall is built of bricks. It's a big wall, but it's built out of little bricks. Yeah. Right? And so I'm talking about not the wall will be built if I lay the next brick and then lay the next brick and then lay the next brick. The wall will get built. I don't have to focus on that. I can focus on laying this brick, and I can make sure it's plumb and square, right? And level. Yeah. Or I could just lay the brick and the wall will also get built. But I can have an experience right now of a different way of experiencing myself as like a craftsman or just a wall builder. Yeah. And I think an artist or a wall builder. And life is full of, Dave, what you said, opportunities. These are the opportunities of our life. Working out is a fantastic, I put everything in a context of the gym because I spent most of my life there. So, but the gym is a great place to have an opportunity to live life well or not. Or not. You can just get it done. You can just get your workout done. And I've done that. I've just got in there and done. Discipline has taken me through and I've gotten it done. And sometimes I hated it and I was glad when it was over. Are you going to say that about your life? I'm glad it's over. Maybe you'll be like, man, I wish this would keep going. This is great. I don't know, but I think that depends a lot on how you're living your life, how you're doing your sets. I'm sad this workout's over. It's too bad. I don't have anything left for another set or another thing. Man, this was great. I'll have to wait to come back in a couple of days and do it again. Or, I am glad that's over. And that's about the experience that you had, not the outcome you get. They both could get you the same amount of progress. You could do one this way or that way. And so I was just thinking, this is just that whole thing about separating out product from process, and is there any value in that? And I think there is. That's all. That's all this really is. I think there's plenty. But you brought up a lot of good things we could talk about too, about building confidence, and you know, if you want to go down that route. But that's just a strange, I guess. It's just another perspective on exactly what you said, right?
No, I
which
agree.
is all true. And I buy into every word you said, right? About all the progress and the strength of building things up for use later, and building parts of our mind that we can use other places. I always talk about building your mind in the gym so you can use it other places. But I was just taking a moment to go, hey, you know what? Even if that were not true, I could still have an opportunity to experience my life in a certain way, where I'm discovering something about pushing myself. And I like that life more than I like the easy life where everything just is like, I've said this for a couple of years now, but we're right there. We're not going to be able to drive our cars anymore. They're going to drive themselves. And everything's going to be done for us if we choose. Like now with AI, you don't even have to write a term paper anymore. You could just write me a term paper about Shakespeare's ideas and feminism, and it will. All right, what was your experience in that? Yeah. What was your experience? So this is the big overarching stamp that I would put on this, and that I'm putting on my whole life, the way I think about life now. I'm not so interested about happiness anymore. When you change I say this all the time, if I'm repeating myself, I apologize, but repeating true things is good. If you change the meaning of life and the purpose of life from seeking happiness to seeking experience, that's it. You just shift. I'm not chasing happiness. I'm chasing the experience. I want to have the experience. Then everything counts. If you're chasing happiness, then only the times you're happy count. And the rest of it is you trying to become happy. And what counts is being happy. Because I'm chasing that. When you chase experience, every damn thing that you do counts.
Well, if you're chasing happiness, then how can you ever be happy? Because for you to have that happiness means you have to be in that moment.
I don't know. It's hard to define happiness and love, but it's not hard to define having an experience that involves you or doesn't. You know if you're involved in an experience, even if it's pain. You know if you're involved in it or if you're not there. Sometimes when I'm having pain, I don't want that experience. And I go somewhere else. I have that ability. Every athlete does. Block out the pain, keep on going, right? So this shift in the way you look at your life, we're an awful long way from home now in this conversation.
No, this is good.
We are a long way from home, but I'll just finish it. That's how I stamp it. I stamp experience above outcome, experience above product, experience above everything that you can get. And when you do that, it all matters. It all matters. It all counts. And when you don't do that, only certain things that you have decided to matter count. And that's fair. And that's a good way to live too. By your own rules, by your, this is what matters to me and this doesn't matter to me. I'm fine with that.
The best way I've heard that kind of summed up for me was, because it's a hard concept to get your head around, right? But like in that happiness, and then you've got like pain or unhappiness or whatever, like a pendulum. And a lot of the time, the harder sometimes you pull happiness towards you, at some point, the harder it's going to swing away from you.
That's
and the harder you try to push suffering away from you or whatever, then the harder it'll end up swinging back. But I like what you said about like life is experiencing things and doing things. Like life is action and being present in action. And then, you know, because happiness, unhappiness, joy, sorrow, every other emotion, anger, whatever, they're all going to happen anyway. The point is, like, did you actually live them or did you not? But I just wanted to backtrack to something that you mentioned, which I think is trying to circle this back around to the training realm, if you like. You mentioned craftsmanship. When you mentioned your wall analogy. And I think that's something, and again, I might catch a lot of backlash for this, but I think that's something where craftsmanship and pride in quality is something that isn't as prevalent in powerlifting that it is in other sports and other sports realms. So what I mean by that is you go to any martial art, like a dojo or I'm not sure what the technical term is for, like a kendo training facility or whatever, or a gymnastics facility, even like cheerleading and things like that, which is getting crazy advanced. The quality of movement and the quality of the work done is always a big determining factor and is what is looked at the most, and to use an example that's maybe closer to home for us all, like if you go in most Olympic lifting training facilities, especially if you go to maybe the Asian countries and things like that, the quality of their movement and technique is just drilled and drilled and drilled and drilled to an endless degree. Like it's never, ever good enough. And I just think that, in my opinion, is maybe why, in terms of the absolute ceiling of human ability, I think maybe powerlifting hasn't quite reached the height yet that we may see in sprinting, high jump, gymnastics, or whatever, because I don't think yet as a sport we have enough laser focus on the quality of the movement and the craftsmanship involved in it. Now, you could argue maybe it's because the motor tasks that you're doing are more simple compared to a gymnast or an Olympic lifter, but don't know about you guys. This might be a tangent to go off on, but I would argue there's almost no upper ceiling for technique. I would make that statement. So even if the movements are still more simplistic, I still think there's still there's room to ever improve, even if the ceiling's slightly lower, maybe in an absolute term.
Well, the limiting factor with powerlifting, and I agree with what you're saying, there's no upper ceiling because there's still neurological firing that can be enhanced. Right? Yeah. So there's so much more to go with that. But when I look at training, so I've always broken it down into, weak points are mental, physical, or technical. That's 1/3 of that is physical. Yeah. Right. So 2/3 of that is the mental and the technical. The obstacle with powerlifting is you can have technique with submaximal weights, and it should be the same as when it becomes maximal weights, but they're disconnected to a degree. The technical efficiency with weights under 60%, you want it to carry over when the weights are 98, 100%, but it's almost different technique because of the load, and that becomes the rub, is you can't train that load all the time. Yes. To get that technical proficiency that a gymnast or a golfer or some other athlete
they have the same load every time, their body.
Yes, but I could counter that argument by saying an Olympic gymnast on the Olympic stage is dealing with having to perform that task in a different mental environment than they've ever been able to practice before. Yes. Because of all the stresses that go into that. And that's part of technical acquisition is to be able to perform that skill in chaos and fatigue and all these different environments. So what lacks in powerlifting is being able to perform that skill in all those different environments. Same monolift is used all the time, same bench is used all the time, same bars used all the time. And that's a good thing if that's what's going to be in competition. But it's also, in a way, hindering that technical development. Yes. But it can, I'm talking in circles, it can also ruin it because you could say, well, just change fat bars, skinny bars, all that. So you get acclimated to using all kinds of different bars, but then you don't have the technical ability with the regular bar to begin with. That is it even doing what you want it to be able to do? Yeah. I just talked in a big...
No, I get that. And
load is what's different. Yeah, is what absolutely. I'm saying and, there.
The Olympic lifting... The Olympic lifting comparison is obviously closer.
It's closer.
But obviously, Olympic lifting is limited by max power rather than max force. So a max clean is not a max effort per se, in the same way that a max effort squat is. So I totally agree with you on that. I just think it's almost more a cultural thing. Sure. In that, how often do you get lifters talking about their bar path being better? How often has a lifter sent you a video being like, it doesn't matter what the weight is on the bar today, whatever. Yeah, but my bar path was so much better today, or this was better. Like, I don't think people take enough pride in the technical proficiency they have, because again, they don't realize what that process leads to
Well, it's
in the
so
long term,
overlooked. I'll tell this and I'll let Jam ring in, but one of the things I had to do with Jacob during the last training cycle, he's a beginner, almost intermediate.
Yeah, that's
almost intermediate.
Yep.
Is the technique still wasn't where it should be with what he wants to do, and it never is, right? But he's not strong enough that he needs more tactical practice, right?
Yes.
So for his warm up for months, it was no longer just stupid shit that you usually do to warm up. It was squat, bench, and deadlift. 95 pounds or 135, 3 sets of 10, 15, whatever it's going to be. And that's your warm up every time you come in the gym 4 days a week. It's not heavy enough to create a stimulus that you need to recover from, but it's technical proficiency that you would see in any other sport.
Yeah.
Every
That's
sport,
what I'm getting at,
right?
yeah.
And I throw that out there and tell some people, maybe you should have your athlete do this. And it's like blasphemy. I'm like, it's not going to ruin their frickin' squat day or their bench day. It's just going to, as long as they're doing it good, there's it needs to be good. You can't reinforce bad technique. It has to be good. And a huge difference, that was made because of that. Now it doesn't need to be done as often, but I question myself, like, why would it not need to be done?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that, I think, from what you're saying in powerlifting for even beginners is so overlooked. It's ridiculous. Walk on a treadmill for 5 minutes, do this to warm up. It's like, why not just grab a dowel rod, squat right, bench right, deadlift right. That's enough to get your body warmed up. Absolutely. If you even need a warm up in the first place, which is another debate.
Which is arguable,
which is arguable, but this isn't counterproductive.
Yes.
In any way. But I never have been able to understand why nobody does it. It's boring, hard, whatever.
Is powerlifting a really varied, entertaining sport?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, last I checked, there's 3 things that are the same every time. Like, okay, maybe you get to use a different bar at your next comp. That's about as varied as it gets, right? If you got into this for a variation of stimulus, you went to the wrong freaking, like, there's CrossFit for that, if you want that.
I think you were going to comment on the technique with maximal weights.
Well, I'm going to comment on technique. So to reinforce what you said about the empty bar and stuff, I have my people do a bench day for training, for strength, and they do a technique day where they do 10 sets of 3 with a very light weight, and the goal there is to improve your technique. You've got 10 chances and 3 reps each, with a very lightweight, to try to find a better groove. And then once you hone in on it, and that should be better by the 3rd or 4th set. If you're doing a set of 10, the first one, you may be on your groove, you may not be, but you practice doing it right. You practice your groove. That's it. 10 sets of 3. Very light, almost no recovery burden, but incredibly hard mentally, because you're trying to show improvement, and they videotape their sets. And you can get a Olympic lifting app that will trace the bar path for you, which is nice, and so they can look at it and do that. But the goal is, by the end of these 10 sets in this week, I want to feel a cleaner bar path, and that's the whole goal. It's not just to do 10 sets of 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And a lot of people mistake that. And I have to drive home. No, your technique day isn't just to do 3 triples for 10 reps. That's not a training effect. What you're trying to do is concentrate hard enough on your technique with such a light weight. And you can do the same thing, that it will improve, to finish that sentence. That by the end of 10 opportunities, you should be able to hit that groove better than when you started today. And then hopefully the next heavy session, you'll be able to bring some of that with you. And you could do 3 sets of 3 to warm up, like you said. You could do technique work, but the technique work it can't just be reps that are done with a light weight. That's completely waste of time. You got to concentrate, and you got to try to get that line cleaner and cleaner. And sometimes I'll have them do them in graduated force. So lower force, more force, more force. And so the bar will speed up because there's more force on it. But we're not after speed, we're just after force. And keeping that line with more and more force. And they do triples that way, and they watch and see. So I think that's, I don't know why people don't do it. They should, right? That's one way to get better. Here's an idea, though, about technique and perfect technique. So how do I want to tell you about this? So I'll state the premise. There is, for sure, a mechanically perfect leverage for your bones in your body. Mm-hmm. That exists. There is an optimal where 1/2 of a millimeter this way or 1/2 of a millimeter that way is off optimal for your length of bones and your setup and your, right? So that exists. Perfection practically exists in technique. Mm-hmm. It's out there and it's achievable in a way. And here's the way. If my technique is like a heat-seeking missile, here's my object, and I go way too far this way, and I realize it, and alarm bells go off, and I pull back this way, and I pull hard back because I'm way off. And I pull hard back, and I overshoot, and now I'm too far on this side, and alarm bells go off. And so I pull back, but I don't pull back all the way to where I was because I know that was too far. So I go short of that when I come back, and I keep this up. This is sort of like a heat-seeking missile in the olden days. I don't think they have those anymore. But then that wobble gets shorter and shorter, smaller and smaller, and then they have what they call being locked on. It's not going to get appreciably better. It's going to hit the target. It's locked on. Now, it's still doing that in ever smaller, almost imperceptible improvements in technique. But after we get locked in, we've got our stroke. So I teach, Tom, that you can make a perfect stroke. It's out there. It exists. It's a real thing. And you can get close enough to being locked onto it that, yes, we can make small, but art, you're still going to hit.
Yep.
You're still going to hit. And so that's where I try to get people with technique.
Okay. I
try to give them the, like, very few things in life. Can you say, once it's good enough, you don't need it to be any better than that.
There's a diminishing returns
and
point.
We're all, even at the end of my career, I'm still far from that, but it still existed for me. I still could have got there. I still could have improved, especially keeping my elbows in, which I know now, but I didn't know then. And so that gives them this hope that, I care a lot about the quality of what I do. I care a lot about the perfection of my stroke, right? I want to get it to that locked in place where even if I were to make small improvements, I'm still going to nail it.
Yeah, I get you.
It's still gonna be on and in my groove. And then once they have that groove, the things that change it, well, for me, what was constantly still changing was I was getting more and more flexible with my spine.
Yep.
Even up until the day I stopped, I was still getting a little bit better arch, and I could feel the difference. I could touch it a tiny bit lower, and I had my shoulders under me more, and it was more, and that was still improving, and I had a long way to go, right? But I agree with you that we can always improve technique, but I think that it's nice to give some people this belief that you can get so close to it that it's not really going to get much better.
Yeah, I understand. And then it almost becomes a diminishing returns. Like, is it worth investing effort into something that's going to give minor feedback?
And the answer is yes for the top level athletes and competing where 0.5%, 1% is make the difference between winning and losing. Yeah. And no for...
Yeah, I get you.
Right.
I guess in that scenario, I'd just make the point that, you use that heat-seeking missile analogy. I don't think many people are in that scenario where the oscillations are minimal, is what I'm saying. And
you're right.
I don't think people take enough pride in the quality, that factor of the work they're doing. But I do also agree that there comes a point where the marginal gains are so small that the time would be better off invested somewhere else. In the same way that you've got like a football player or something, as soon as he can squat X amount, is it really worth trying to make him squat more, or is it just worth him doing more jumps, sprints, and throws, whatever? And
going back to what you said, a thought popped into mind, because it often does, about just taking pride in what we do.
Mm-hmm.
So there are, I'm going to be not vulgar, but crude.
Mm-hmm.
There are some men who will go into intercourse just to get the job done. And there are other men that care about the quality of that experience.
Mm-hmm.
And they care about their work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a different experience when you care about your work. You can get the job done.
Mm-hmm.
That's one way to get through it. There's another way to get through it. How about the experience of the job and taking pride in what I'm doing?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. So that almost circles right back to the quality of your life in a moment is determined on the quality you put in, and
it does.
Big circle right there.
And in this case, somebody else gets happy too, maybe, perhaps.
Well, if we take that, right, the quality of life, and then you take it to a training session.
Yeah.
Right. There's only so many training sessions you have, that you can do.
Yes.
So the quality is going to matter more if the objective is to get better.
Yes.
Right. Because there's only so many hours in the day, and there's a tipping point where too much is too much. Where if you just look at life in general, I mean, our lifespans are very short compared to the universe, right? I mean, it's just a blip in time, right? And then we waste most of it. We sleep through a lot of it, right? But then we waste a whole lot of it. If you compound that down into here's the training session, I would rightfully say most of it's probably wasted.
Yep.
Right. And then you have rest periods that are associated too. So there's only so much time in there to have quality work, the actual set, so forth. And that's not emphasized.
Yes.
That, right? Like, how many exercises are you doing? 4, 5, maybe. How many sets per exercise? 4, something like 20. What's that time period when you boil it all down?
Yep.
5 minutes, maybe, something like that.
Sure.
So 5 minutes, that the quality needs to be at a maximal level. I can argue that's a lot, right? Especially if you're fucking off, in between and all this other stuff for the main movement, right? Accessories, whatever, fuck off all you want. But I guess you could argue back on that one too, because everything can matter, but things matter to a different degree. Yeah. But the main thing, that focus should be on making that quality of every single repetition. Yes. What it should be.
And I think, especially if you compete, like, there are always exceptions to everything, right? But it bugs me sometimes when you're at a meet and you see people with coaches and they want stuff cueing and correcting at a meet. And I'm just like, this is too late.
Yep. This
is not, you do not cue and correct now. Now is, you can argue there's two different mentalities, right? There's like training, skill acquisition, and there's trusting, which would be you're all in, now is the time to trust. Now is the time to remove thinking, because if you have to think, you've already lost almost, right? You need to do this bit over here, which is the weeks, the months leading up to it, where the conscious practice is good enough that and you mentioned this to Steve when you were working with him, that by the time you get here, you shouldn't need cueing or correct, unless something's really off that you have to step in.
Well, you're going to hear it anyhow.
Yeah. But and I think that's the bit people forget about. Like, if you want to compete and perform at your best, then why not make life so much easier for yourself and make it that when you step up on that platform, your mind can just be completely almost empty to the point where all you have to focus on is push as hard as humanly possible, because you only have so much brain power. And if that brain power is going over here because you've got to think about your right knee caving in, or you don't pull down, well, that's all brain power that isn't going into just push with absolutely everything that you have. And I think, again, people just don't think about that. And it's like, well, what if What if you could just go in with 100% confidence in your ability and just focus on lifting as hard as humanly possible? Like, even if the technical practice didn't put pounds on the bar, but just made the competitive experience much more pleasurable and much easier and less stressful, well, then that would probably put pounds on the bar anyway. But wouldn't that make it a nicer experience for you anyway, more rewarding? You know, that would be the way I would look at it for starters.
I think that's something, and I agree with absolutely everything you said there, and something that I think needs to be mentioned too is to get to that point, to have that privilege, to have the luxury of going blind and just pushing and trusting your technique, trusting the training. You have to really concentrate and think a lot in the training. You have to think so much that it becomes ingrained by rote and habit, that when the time comes where you want to be free, to put that energy, that mental energy, into something else, like go, that motor pattern is so ingrained because you concentrated so heavily on it. So there's a price to pay to be able to do that, and that's paid in concentration, effort in training. And I hate the term overthinking, but you need to overthink that training. You need to think about everything in training so that you get the luxury and the privilege and the opportunity to go blank when you want to. And so you really have to concentrate and pay the price in training, in mental focus on every little detail, so that when you want to free up and let the horses run, they will run where you taught them. There's a groove. They will run right where you taught them. Because if not, if you try to do this, I'm at the meet now and it's time to every man for himself, and I'm just going to let it rip. Then if you haven't ingrained that subconsciously in that motor pattern, where when you're not thinking, it does what it's been trained to do, and that training isn't strong enough because you didn't concentrate enough, you didn't think enough about it. Now that you're not thinking, sometimes that will work out for you.
Sometimes.
But only sometimes. Sometimes it will go off the rails. And so that's a privilege that you earn.
Oh, absolutely.
By concentrating a lot and thinking and thinking and thinking in the training.
And I think people underestimate how taxing that is in a neurological kind of, like, I was lucky. The first coach I ever hired was had like a kinesiology background, but he'd been doing martial arts since he was like 4. And that was the kind of approach he brought to lifting, movement, everything. So like some of the sessions we would do, I would literally be doing nothing other than things like bear crawls backwards, rolling onto the side in certain positions, like quarter get-ups, like small, what you'd call basic human movements. But it was with the intricacy that he wanted me to execute them. Like, it got to the point where I had to do our sessions at like 8 or 9 o'clock at night because I couldn't have a lecture, or because I was at university at the time, I could not do any work after that 1 hour session because I was so focused on trying to wire together these movement patterns that are supposed to be basic human nature, but in such a fine-tuned, attentive manner, I would just be completely brain dead. And I think a lot of lifters would probably find that if they had a coach take them through a real technique session where they have to focus on every, from how they root their feet, everything from the ground up, they probably would find more often than not, obviously depending on the load and stuff you use, it's going to be their concentration and their ability to focus that's probably going to go before their body goes, right? And they're going to have to clock it then. Whether they know or aware enough of that is a different
almost
matter,
every time.
But I just think, that's an investment worth making, surely, if anything. But again, I think people will then underestimate how taxing that is to do if you really want to do it well.
And it's no fun.
Well, no, absolutely not. You could just max out, right? That'll make me stronger instead.
It's fun to max out. It's fun to see. No, it's no fun. It's work. And it's valuable, right? It's valuable. What it gives you is that, you're talking about trusting yourself and doing it, but trusting your training, knowing that when you let it all out, it'll be in the right place, not somewhere across the room. It's right where you wanted it to be because you trained it to be there. And that's not that doesn't come with just practice. That old phrase, practice makes perfect. I like it, but it's incomplete, right? You add one more thing. You say, perfect practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
Shitty practice makes you shittier. You're better at doing it wrong. Right? So it's not just time in the gym. And that, when I do these 10 sets of triples with people, it's not just being there and doing 10. Each one, you got to be striving to do it cleaner. And you can feel the clean ones. The cleanest ones feel like the bar's a little lighter. Hey, that went right up. It's the same weight every time, but that one rep in that group felt lighter. Now, nobody took weight off of it. And if you really hit a decent size weight in your groove in a set, it feels like somebody helped you.
Yeah.
You're like, oh man, that was that fourth rep or that third rep. That was in it, right? And that's how you learn. That's how I teach people to feel that groove. Feel for that. Go for that thing where it felt lighter. And when they're doing their technique work, I ask them to do that. I ask them to try to feel the weight. Feel like it's not lighter, like it's not as heavy. That's your groove. You're getting closer.
Yeah. The weight will tell you when it's in the right place.
Yeah. If you pay attention. If you're just in there doing it, saying, hey, I did 10 sets, 3. I did 30 reps of practice. Okay. That's probably good, but did you do them right? Because if you did them wrong, that's 30 reps of you practicing the wrong thing. And now you're better at that. Now you're better at doing it poorly.
Yeah.
And that's not what, so that's practice isn't enough.
Yeah.
It's intentful practice, perfect practice, practice with the intent to improve, not just putting in time.
No, I agree. I think a quote, and I kind of credit the person, I'm sorry, that said this, maybe one of you know, but basically like how you do anything is how you do everything.
I've heard that.
Yeah, I can't tell you, so someone will probably comment or whatever and say it, but like, that's why I like when you do the train your ass off, the first thing you said was you'll stand back and say nothing, because you'll watch how they warm up, because that tells you probably 90+% of what you need to know about them. Are they just coming in and swinging their arms around doing the same warm up they've been doing for 15 years because they just saw it on an Instagram video, or are they coming in with a purposeful plan of doing what they need to do, what they know what they need to do to optimize themselves for whatever's coming next, and they're executing it consciously in the best way they can, you know. And you can, if you actually do that and stand back, you can see night and day differences.
You see a lot. And then when they do their first set of any of the main lifts, you see a lot. Yeah. Because it's just the bar. But are they grabbing it with intent? Are they even looking at where they're putting their hands, or are they just grabbing the thing? You know, there's a lot, you know, that can just be seen with that. And in most cases, there's not intent. You know, with any of that. And what's interesting with what you're saying with the intentful practice is one of the questions we get a lot of deals with visualization and all this other kind of, it starts there, but kind of, that helps, right? Because if you know, how are you going to see yourself be able to do something if you can't do that something with intent in the first place?
Yes.
And if you do it with intent enough over a long enough period of time, you will start dreaming about it, you know, so daydreaming for sure about it, and not daydreaming about smashing fucking weights and shit like that, but actually seeing the intent of what you're supposed to do. So one plays into the other and back into the other. It's a cyclical thing. Yes. But if that intent's not there, good luck trying to visualize anything that's going to be worth a shit. You know, because you don't know what to even try to see.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think if you're not aware enough during your physical practice to have the proprioception to feel everything that goes on, like to really what happens on every millimeter of that bar path, where are you in space, what's working, what's not, how do you, if you can't clue into it there when the sensation's actually happening, how are you going to imagine it? Yeah, so I totally agree.
You'll imagine with somebody else.
So then visualization becomes useless or ingrains the wrong thing.
Yes.
Because its effect is based on the physical experience itself, so it has to have like something to have a bedrock to be taken from.
To get that kind of understanding of your motion, you have to slow it down. You have to go through it very painfully, exceedingly slow, so that you know what each millimeter feels like. You can't just do it because I remember trying to do this when I was throwing shot put in high school. And I'm trying to visualize and the shot put's gone. I can't feel I can't feel my shoulder turn. I'm trying to learn this, and I'm trying to visualize it. I'm a young guy, and I didn't really understand it, but it all happened so quickly. It's hard to know where your body is at any point.
Yeah.
So one thing that helps a lot with all of this is slowing things down in the gym. Slow, methodical movements where you're paying attention to what it feels like, not to getting it done. And then, of course, you do that accurately and slowly with your visualization. You don't visualize it necessarily. I don't visualize anything in real time.
Yeah.
I visualize it all in hyper or slow motion, and what's going to happen now and what's going to happen next. And I don't think I've never even tried to visualize anything in real time, from a frisbee golf throw to a lift. No, I don't think I have. Now, maybe I should have, but that's not been my practice.
Yeah.
And I know what every part of all of the exercises that I do feels like, because I do them slow.
Yeah.
Now, I can do them fast, and if I did them fast, I would bet you, I'd be willing to bet that I would do them properly, because I do them properly slow, and that is an ingrained motor pattern. So if I could speed that up as fast as you want, and it's not going to vary, I don't think, much.
I would say one thing that helps there, that something that I use that probably seems a bit like gimmicky, but actually getting lifters to do lifts with their eyes shut.
Sure.
Because it is really hard to comprehend how much of your proprioception is based on vision. Like you take that away from people, and all of a sudden you think you're not looking at where you are in space when you do a squat. There's no mirror in front of me. I'm not watching yourself. You are. You're watching how your head is changing in response to the wall or whatever it is you're looking at. And now you take that visual stimulus away, and now all you have is your internal proprioception, for want of a better word. It's like, well, now you have no choice but to clue into these things and start feeling the things that maybe you're not feeling because you're just depending on the visual input to get you through it. And then you start doing that. I mean, first off, they're going to slow down straight away because they're intimidated by the fact their eyes are shut, right? The weight's probably going to be low. And then over time, they learn how to start cluing into all those internal stimuli that they need. And, it's like the information is there, but they just don't know how to read it. And they start cluing into all that stuff. And then again, when you're into the really heavy stuff where you don't want information, or you don't want all that input, maybe you have to look at something that's really off-putting at the meet, whatever, or you've got all this stuff internally feeling yourself in space that gives you all the information you need now. And then again, when it comes to visualization, now you actually have all those, intricate feelings of what's doing what at what point in the lift, that you can actually get something out of it.
I would say at a certain point, and competitively, it's going to happen anyhow.
Well, yeah.
You're
absolutely, as
soon as you unrack the bar, you're not seeing shit.
Yeah.
It's all tactical feedback. That's it. And auto-regulated if it's done right. If you starts to feel like you're coming a little bit out of your groove, you should just automatically correct that. If it falls too much out, you're going to come back to reality real quick and then ask yourself, what do I need to do? Yeah. And hopefully you're skilled enough to know what you need to do and correct from there. But it's going to happen. Yeah.
I just think it's always interesting to do that experiment with people and see just exactly how much it changes for them in terms of their confidence in their movement and what they think they feel when you take the ice set away. Because a lot of the times they're not really feeling their feet as they think they are. And then all of a sudden you take that away, the distraction away, and then they really start feeling it, and they're like, oh, this is what you mean. Like, I thought I was feeling my feet rooting, but now, again, you don't know what it is until you experience it once, at least, right? So you upregulate all those feelings once, and now you're like, okay, now I have a barometer for what I should be feeling and the tension I should be building and so on and so forth.
Yes. I mean, as horrible as this is ethically in the gym, if the weight's heavy enough and you're locked in enough, it won't matter if somebody's walking in front of you when you squat.
Absolutely.
Right.
No, you're right.
But it's a shitty thing to do. So I'm still going to put that out there. Don't do that.
Yeah.
You know, because not everybody's at that level, you know, to be able to do that. Because at a meet, you know, anything can happen at that point. Oh God, yeah, anything can happen. You need to. I can't even remember seeing the squat command. You just hope to fuck that you heard something.
It's happened. Yeah. Because I mean, again, the amount of times like I've heard people saying to people, "Oh, did you not notice like the music died during your lift?" And you're like, "No. Why would I notice that? Like I was not there at that point, if you know what I mean." And yeah, you're right. That's absolutely how it should be at that point.
Yeah. I think I can tell you quite a bit about my training sessions. But people ask me, when you did this or when you did that, I don't remember too much about the competitive. Because I was in a different place. I was in that free space of, I got one thing to do, right? I had two things. I had the goal of setting up properly and then the goal of pushing really hard. And they were sequential, so I didn't have to do them at the same time. But I don't remember a lot of meets and a lot of things that happened to meets. And I never watched anybody else lifting. I missed a lot of world records that happened because I wasn't watching. And I could have been, I suppose. But that's not why I was there. I was there for my lift, and I didn't have anything to do with that lift, right? I missed a bunch of world records because I just wasn't, I didn't want to be distracted. I was somewhere else. And I don't remember lots of things.
Yeah. But I would argue that is a good depiction of what, you know, I personally class as training mentality versus trusting, testing, whatever. Because testing, trusting mentality, mindset, whatever is, the more you can empty your mind, the more you can fill it with go, push, you know, whatever your go-to thing in your head is, right? So that is, to me, that embodies that perfectly and kind of sums it up nicely. It's like, yeah, because I was completely devoid of everything else because I needed every tiny percentage of brain power I had for that moment I was on the platform to fill it with push with everything you have.
Yeah, for me, that's what it was all about. Even if it's just a heavy fucking lift in the gym, it's that, right? Because you're disconnected from fucking everything. Yeah,
absolutely.
You want to talk about being in a moment? You know, that's a moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why a lot of people actually like maxing out. It's not necessarily that they hit a heavy weight or that it's a PR. It's that they go to a place where they learn to completely zone out and be completely in that moment. Because if you don't, you fail.
Well, this is where I think people misunderstand this a little bit. That place can also be achieved with your work sets if you're focusing hard enough, right? It shouldn't only be that 1 rep max.
No, absolutely.
Right? It should be those work sets that are leading into that. And that's a skill, you know, that's got to be acquired over a period of time too.
For sure. Because I mean, it takes mental effort to concentrate that much, like in a unimodal.
Yeah. And now we're dealing with an arousal curve, right?
Yeah.
You go too fucking far, you're thrown up after the set and all kinds of shit.
And you're overthinking.
Yeah. Now you're not going to recover for the next week, but fuck, it was still worth it. But anyhow, that's a weird, it's a balance that you only learn how to play that instrument by playing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're like, too much. You know, that was a fucking mess. You know, not enough. And there's a range.
Yeah, there is, absolutely. And I think people make the presumption that everyone is wired the same there when it's really not true. You know, like some people are naturally anxious, and if anything, they need to go be calmed, they need to meditate, whatever, to be at the peak of that curve. Whereas other people need the ammonia, they need the back slap that's so hard they have a welt on their back for a week afterwards, right? And that's fine, but you don't know where you are on that curve in your natural state until you play around with it and you find like, oh, actually, when I calm down, my performance goes up. That means I'm naturally on this side. Or
and a good coach will know that in the athlete they're working with too, which is interesting when you're in gyms with multiple people. Because like, why is that motherfucker not all psyched up like he should be? It's like, just, he's fine.
Because that's what's optimal for him.
No, he could be so much stronger if he, like, actually no. Like you would probably be stronger if you just dialed it back a little bit
and focused more instead of raging on everything.
Yeah. But it looks cool, right?
Yeah.
I really like something you said, Dave, a phrase that you used about learning to play that instrument. And so I want to throw something in about that. If our competitive adventure is how much we can lift one time right at the edge of our ability, that's the instrument. And how many times do you do that in a session, in a lifetime, in a career? So I think that there's an argument to be had about learning to play that instrument that most effort mentally and going to failure a lot. Going to that edge, failing a lot in your training. Now that doesn't have to be a 1 rep max failure. You can learn to fight at the end of a set of 6 where you could only get 5, right? But you fail on that 6th one, but you fight like crazy and you learn to play that instrument, Dave. How else are you going to learn to play that instrument? If you get all your reps in training up to you'll probably get stronger, but what happens if you hit the number you wanted on your 2nd attempt and then on your 3rd you try more and the bar stalls? What do you know about that? What do you know about playing that instrument? And so I think it's very valuable to program in going to failure on some things, to learn about playing that instrument. And that could be a set of 10 failure. It could be a triple. It could be anywhere you want to do it as a coach. But if you're not visiting that, I'm going to bet there's a lot to learn yet.
Yeah.
Oh, most
about
definitely.
Playing that instrument when you get enough weight on the bar and the bar doesn't want to go. And there's a
I mean, how are you going to react to that, right?
But that's another example where if you have to think, you've already lost, right? Because
too late.
the nanoseconds it takes you to decide, do I fight this or not? The bar's decided it for you. So like you need to ingrain, there is only one answer to this question of do I keep going? And it's yes. Because if you have to have that debate internally, you've already, it's decided for you.
Yeah, but that debate has to be had.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, that has to be had in the gym so you can get to the point where it's subconscious.
And that's why I think, not maybe not maxing out all the time and maybe not max efforts all the time, but getting to a point where you fail at a rep range that you think is appropriate as a coach and as a trainee and what you can recover from. Doesn't always have to be a single, but there has to be some fight. You have to learn how to fight or you won't learn how to fight. You won't learn to play that instrument, as you said so well. So, and I hear arguments against it, but they're not well thought out. They're not well supported about, no, you don't want to go to failure. You don't want to go to failure. And one of your arguments is, and you mentioned it, you repeated, Dave, how do you know what your 100% is if you haven't gone to failure, right? You say that all the time. Well, not only just knowing it once, but learning how to inhabit that moment.
Yeah.
And inhabit it a little longer. Because at that moment, what's happening is you're firing a certain number of motor units, and it's moving the bar to there. Now, there's more motor units available. You just haven't got the signal to them. You got to reach the threshold of turning them on. And that ain't easy. They're high threshold now. You got all the easy ones. They've already fired and the bar's here. So now you need to fire another couple motor units. And maybe those that will move the bar. But you have to stay with it. You have to work with it. You have to grind. You have to learn how to do that. You can't just be like, I got 3, I got 4, I can't get 5. And it just goes up, can't get it. Now the body wants to do that because this is something we have to fight in our evolutionary makeup. The human mind, the human brain as a whole is not programmed for excellence. It's programmed for survival. Everything in it. Excellence is about using whatever energy I have to get the goal that I want. Even if that goal isn't a big payoff, if I decide I want it, I'll pay whatever price to get it. That's not a survival tactic.
Yeah.
A survival tactic is, what do I need to survive, and what's the least amount of energy I can give to get what I need to survive? So we live in a world where survival is guaranteed. We don't have to cleanse our water or find food or fight the bears to kick them out of our cave so we could live there. That's all gone. But that's what we used to have to do. And in that scenario, you don't want to, the body doesn't want to waste metabolic energy or mental energy. It wants to conserve, because there's always a threat of running out. That has anything to do with excellence. Excellence is, I want this Corvette, and this guy in California is selling it for 3 times what it's worth. But I want it. I don't say, so a prudent person would say, that's 3 times Blue Book. No. And that's what the conservative survival mind says. The guy that goes for excellence, and I'll pay any price, I'll pay you 3 times, and then I'll have that stupid thing. And in nature, the bats do this. They go out hunting, and they use their sonar, and they see an insect, and they calculate how far away it is, how fast it's moving, and how much nutrition it'll give them. And they decide to hunt it and try to catch it. And if they haven't caught it within a certain cutoff point, they calculate, I got to stop chasing this one, because even if I catch it, I'm going to spend more calories and energy getting it. That's not excellence. That's survival.
Yeah.
I'm going to go, and they have a cutoff point. I can only chase this insect so long. And if I haven't caught it, I got to go for something else. I can't put any more energy into this. And so our brains are like that. They want to conserve energy, conserve. What's the least amount I can get? Hey, I want to buy that thing from you. Will you take $1? How about 50 cents? How about a quarter? I want to get away with getting what I need for as little as I can pay. That is not the mindset of excellence. The mindset of excellence is, I don't care what this costs. I'm going to get it. I'm going to have it. I'm going to have that Corvette. I'll pay that price 3 times what it's worth. Okay. Hell with it. Now the Corvette is mine. That's excellence. It's about paying more and more and more and going above and beyond. And that is contrary to how our brain's set up to survive. It doesn't want to spend all this energy doing stuff. It wants to go, hey, I can't get it. Might as well give up. It's a lost cause. I tried. Not going to go. And you know it's not going to go, right? And what learning to play the instrument is not that. Is going, I got to do something different here. I got to keep trying, even though I know I'm not going to get it. And I'm not going to let it come back down on me, at least.
Let me throw a different scenario at you.
Okay.
So staying on this theme where you're at a bench meet, right? So opener's fine. Take your second. It doesn't touch exactly where you would like it to touch. Starts coming up. You feel a lot of strain in the shoulders where it really shouldn't be there. You're not going to push through that because you still got a third. You don't want to waste that energy because it will take away. Maybe you conserve it,
yeah.
You know, so you'll conserve it because it went wrong.
It was so wrong.
And it's not worth, which is, now that's survival.
That's survival.
Right? But in essence, it's still excellence because the bigger weight on the third's what matters the most on that day. See the caveat?
No, I don't see a caveat, but right. I see what you're telling me about the conservation of energy for a higher purpose, a redirecting of, and then here's my question then. Why are you taking that second at that weight? I would suggest that you should have taken the weight that you wanted to achieve on the second. And here's why. Here's my reasoning. You need to get into meat, and so you don't want to risk bombing out because you want to go ahead and deadlift as well. So you're on the bench and so my is get an opener that's assured, that you can assess the bench, the judging, the timing of the meet. Get in with something you know you can get, and then immediately go for an all-out effort in a second. If you get it, you get to test and see if there's more in the tank, and maybe and you should be fairly well rewarded by hitting that number you wanted to hit. And if you miss it, then you can try it again and do it right. And so that's not what you were getting at.
No, it's if it's in the wrong spot, but you're not going to expand the energy for it.
Yeah.
Well, maybe though, because if it is,
at a meet that I would be in,
in your case,
I would have to, because that's my second attempt, and I have to go for it.
Yeah.
Now, if I can't get it, if I'm really out of whack, perhaps because I'll get a third attempt at it, right? Same way.
Mm-hmm.
So I know what you're saying, and I kind of skewed it on purpose, right? To get that strategy. I want to pass that strategy on.
But this is a different level of lifter though too, because you're assessing that in that moment.
Well,
kind of like the bat, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're acting like a bat.
Yeah.
Like, okay, not worth this. This is here.
Yeah.
You know, most people that are listening to this are never going to get in that spot or position.
In training though, you always have an opportunity to go another one, right?
Oh, yeah.
You always can take another one.
You could also make the argument there. On that second attempt, he would only know what a sticking point that he is going to recover from versus isn't is going to feel like if he's hit enough of them. From
hitting enough,
if he hasn't,
knowing the instrument.
If he's never hit a sticking point, ever,
Tom.
he has no idea what this sticking point is. Is this one I can grind through, or is this a catastrophic failure?
That's a good point.
If I come close to or hit failure enough times in the gym, I know that if I'm failing because the bar is back here and it's drifted this way, or my elbow, whatever it might be, I know the chance of rescuing that is so infinitesimal that it's not worth it. Mm-hmm. However, if it's a sticking point down here, I've been here a bunch of times. I know I got like an 80% chance of this. So now I know it's worth the output. But again, you don't know that unless you've been there enough times to have the data and whatever, right?
And I remember before I knew anything about powerlifting, there was a guy and he came to Ohio State and he had a powerlifting background. He was squatting and he said, I'm going to do a triple, but don't touch the bar. Don't help me get it. Now, I'm coming from a bodybuilding, forced reps, keep going thing. He's like, don't touch it. If I can't get it, just take it. Because I don't want, because in a meet, you have to either get it on your own or you don't. And I don't want to ever have somebody help me. And I understand that philosophy, but it's incomplete. Because here he is failing, and he gets 2, but not 3, and he almost gets 3, and he just wants to bail out. But I could have helped him a little bit, and he would have got the rest of that training effect of that forced rep, where he didn't get anything. He tried it and quit. He could try it, not quit. I could help him with what's missing, and he gets the training effect.
Yeah.
So I do understand that idea about don't touch it, don't touch it, don't touch it, right? Because I want to know it's all me. And that was what he was talking about. And that's important. You have to know that, you can't be an all you bench where that's all you, and a guy's training, right? It's not all you, right? And in a meet, it has to be all you. But once that happens, I say that's an opportunity to train through that rep. And I usually finish those reps for people.
Okay, yeah, I
for that reason.
Yeah. I mean, because you could argue at that point, the investment.
Yeah, I got to use the bathroom too.
All right, good. Thanks, Dave.
Elite FTS was founded in 1998 with the aim to live, learn, and pass on. We've done this through training-related content that allows you to become the strongest athlete and coach that you can. Over the past 2 decades, actually 2.5 decades, we've published more complementary training media than anybody else in the industry. When you look at the number of articles, the Q&As, the blogs, the videos, the podcasts, there's over 1 million pages of content that we've put out there. We've been able to do this through your support of Elite FTS. So when you purchased Elite FTS strength equipment bands, accessories, gear, apparel, or anything through the site, you directly help support the content that we put out, which in turn helps support other people on their journey of becoming stronger and better coaches. So stronger athletes and better coaches, which encompasses the aim and the vision to live, learn, and pass on. So I thank you for the support that you've been giving for the past 25 years and encourage you to keep supporting Elite FTS into the future so we can all help more people become better and stronger. Discount code Table Talk for 10% off your first order. All right, guys, if you like the Table Talk podcast, then you're going to love the crew. If you're struggling with trying to get through a sticking point, you're trying to figure some specific aspect of your training out that you just can't dial in, you're dealing with injuries, you're trying to figure out how to better optimize your training, all the stuff you're seeing on social media is confusing, and all you need is a little guidance and support, or just somebody to look at your lifts to make sure that they're either heading in the right direction, or if there's a weak point in the lift, they can point out what that weak point is. Well, that's what we have the crew for. So when you join the crew, you get an extra Table Talk podcast each month called the Crewcast. You also get access to our Discord community, which has a training Q&A, form checks with top coaches, mindset section, nutrition, training logs, programs, over 30 ebooks, plus exclusive ebooks just for the crew, webinars, lectures, seminars, giveaways ranging from full strength equipment. We've given away many yoke bars this year. We've given away actually pieces of strength equipment as well as accessory items, and you get exclusive crew discounts. So go to the link in the description that says join the crew, click it, join now, and start getting stronger today.
Today's episode is brought to you by Element, a tasty electrolyte drink mix with everything that you need and nothing that you don't. In other words, no sugar, no artificial coloring, no artificial ingredients, no gluten, no fillers, and no BS. With Element, I love the watermelon. The watermelon tastes freaking awesome. I drink one pack every day, no matter what. People that train out here, it's sitting out here for them all the time. The boxes don't last very long. Right now, Element is offering Table Talk listeners a free sample pack with any purchase. That's 8 single serving packages free with any Element order. Get yours at drinkelement.com/Table Talk. The deal is only available through the link in the description. The other thing is, if you don't like it, you can just give it away to a salty friend and Element will give you a 100% refund. No risk, money back guarantee. Head over to drinkelement.com/Table Talk. America Health is a premium telehealth platform specializing in hormone optimization and preventative medicine. Are you looking to optimize your health in and out of the gym, improve recovery, sex drive, and quality of life? Have you tried speaking to your health professional about this and have gotten the cold shoulder, stereotyped, or just told it's part of getting older? You just go to americahealth.com/Table Talk, and you can create your own lab, or you can take labs that we've had set up for them, which are based upon the same labs that I've been doing over the last 15 years. Or you can use their guided optimization. With this, they'll put you in touch with a patient care coordinator, which is actually pretty cool because you get to sit down and speak to somebody that can understand what you're looking for from hormone optimization and the preventative medicine standpoint. After that conversation, they'll determine which labs that you should and which tests you should have done, and then from there, get the labs done. They'll review those labs with you and put you in touch with one of their hormone optimization specialists that can determine which supplementation that you should use over the counter or prescription. americahealth.com/Table Talk. The discount code is Table Talk.
All right, finish your thought because we kind of cut you off.
I was going to say, I'd argue at that point in that scenario where he's 2.5 reps in, you've pretty much made all the training stress investment in the set, realistically, right?
No.
Well, what I mean is in terms of the output, it's already taken out of you probably what it's going to take out of you, whereas you helping him complete that half rep gets him more stimulus back.
Yes,
so what I mean by that is if he did that 3rd rep successfully because the bar was 100 grams lighter, you would look at that set and go, great, that was a great stimulus. So,
but not as much as
right now. Why all of a sudden now is it a bad thing that it's 100 grams heavier, but with good technique still, he's made that same investment in terms of output and strain but you've just helped him get that extra half rep. I don't get where people kind of die on a hill and fall off a cliff where we're like, this is perfectly fine, and that is like a no-go. But I think like a lot of things, like when you're talking about forced reps and stuff there, I think it just gets a bad rep because people do it poorly. Or maybe the wrong people do it, you know?
What I would say about that is, I don't care if you fail with good form.
Mm-hmm.
I'd prefer you to fail a rep with good form than complete that rep with poor form.
Yes.
Because what you're doing is you're saying, hey, if I do it wrong, a little bit wrong, if I cheat, I'll get a better result than if I do it right.
Sorry, no, what I meant was...
And that can't possibly be true, right?
No, I guess, sorry, what I meant by that was when I say you do the forced rep with good form, I mean like you're helping him up on the bar and he's not like rounded
staying
over.
In his
like,
groove.
He is in so like,
form. Yeah.
why is all of a sudden that's a bad thing?
It's not.
Whereas like if the bar was 100 grams lighter and he did it and it was like RPE 10,
right?
Why is one considered fantastic stimulus and then this over here, which is 0.1% more of a strain perhaps, is considered terrible?
It's not terrible.
That's overtraining. That's how...
Yeah, no. See, well...
It can't be that simple is what I'm saying.
Overtraining is an interesting topic, right? And I like... It's not as simple as saying there is no overtraining, just under recovery. However, that's so frequently true, right? It's not always true, but it's so frequently true. You can train anything you can recover from, and that's the deal. And if you build yourself up to have the capacity to do more, you have to follow that with your capacity to recover more. And so people can do tremendous amounts of work if they do tremendous amounts of recovery. That's just, remember we were talking about the whole life and the whole world. And so I have lots of people who have been willing to do the work in the gym and work really hard and do those extra reps and risk overtraining and then not be able to follow that with the recovery to support that. And then in that case, we trained more than they could recover from, but not because the training was too much, but because they didn't factor in all of the important things to factor in about recovery. And I think there are 6. And if you and I start a training program, we're going to expect that the training program gets harder. It gets progressively harder. Every year I lift more weight on these exercises. And that's planned in and that's accepted. Who gives a thought to thinking, well, the same thing must be true of my sleep patterns? As 3 years ago, I was training at this level with these weights. Now I'm up here with these weights. I expected the increase in effort and strength and output, but I didn't change my sleep patterns at all. I didn't change my diet at all. I didn't change my stress reduction and meditation. And wait a minute. For every step in increase in the program, I should, and I will have to, if I want to keep pace with that and let it keep going, also bring up my recovery abilities. And when they are out of sync, something doesn't work. As long as the recovery ability is way up here. And so you train for years learning how to push yourself harder and harder and harder. And you don't think about recovery once. You just come back. You just come back in a couple of days and do some more lifting. And you're weak when you start. You're little. You're losing light weights. You don't know how to push yourself for the first couple of years. Then you start learning. And at some point, this automatic built-in recovery ability of the organism, you train a little more than it, and you start to see the results. And then if you really keep pushing, this gets out of sync. And that's overtraining or under recovery. So you can keep going with your intensity of your training. You can keep getting stronger, but you got to bring this up too. And nobody has a plan. They have a plan for their training to progress, but they don't have a plan for their sleep habits and sleep hygiene. And you can only increase so many hours. First, maybe I can go get in 6 hours, so I go to 7. Okay, you just get more sleep. But at some point, you have to get better sleep. Get 8-9 hours, You can't get 10, 12, 15 hours of sleep. It's not about more at some point. It's about better sleep. And you got to know what that means. What does better sleep mean? How do I go about getting better sleep? Well, there's ways. People know. It's great. They know all about it, actually. And so could you. But you got to plan it in. What am I going to need when my training goes to here, right before I peak? And is my sleep at that level or not? Is the quality of my sleep, is the quality of my food, is the quality of my stress reduction, is the quality of my rejuvenation, so I'm recharged to go for another workout, and is the rest of my life in order? And if it's not, then there's a problem. And then it could be argued, well, the training is too much. Well, yeah, it's too much for this amount of recovery, but you didn't do shit to bring this up as you drove yourself in the gym. I got lots of people.
Well, the other more frequent issue that happens in that case is they change programs. So say they're training 3 days per week, but their influencer that they follow trains 6. So they go on a 6-day-a-week program, and now obviously it's the same scenario, right? But now they're screwed. Right, because your ability to recover is matched with your work capacity if you're making progress. It should be a slow increase in that work capacity, to pull up with increases in that, where the false assumption is, I'm going to say what you said, I'm going to reduce my stress, I'm going to sleep more, I'm going to eat better, but then I'm going to also double whatever my training output is immediately. And maybe if they're super disciplined, they can get away with that. But typically what follows is they'll do the training, but then they won't be compliant on all those other things, and then right back down.
Well, that's where, as you would say, you usually find out how all in people are. And you also probably then, usually at some point, and Jem, I think you've spoken about this, like quite often at some point that you will get to a level of performance where you actually need to train less. That can genuinely, that
Absolutely,
happens.
Most definitely.
So then you also will weed out the people who are in it just for the training.
Is it training less if there's more stimulus happening in what you're actually
I'm turning
doing?
in terms of frequency or whatever, right? Because then you get to the point where it's like, and then you talk about the people who are in it for the training. That's where you start seeing that divide come up then, right? Because, well, I want to train 5 days a week, but if you want to be this percentage better and perform at that level, you can't perform at that level 5 days a week. You've got to train 3 days a week or 4. And then they've got then they have to have that realization, right? Am I in this to be the best? Or am I in this for the train? There's no wrong answer, as you said, right? But that's another kind of like fork in the road people get to, I find.
Yeah, well, what got you there isn't what's going to get you to the next place. And in training, it's a weird paradox, because when you're younger and you're not neurally efficient, you can do all kinds of exercises and just train your ass off. Then you get more efficient, and there's more fatigue associated with that. And you question, like, now I have to do less. Well, yeah, but you're actually doing more. And that's what they don't grasp.
The intensity's going up. And the
and
volume
the load's
going
down.
And intensity.
Yeah.
It goes up. And intensity is self-limiting.
Yeah, I would say the effort also goes up too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does. It does. Those things go up. But you and I think I've said this many times, I went from benching every 5 days, made a lot of progress, benched over, I think, 500 that way. Still sort of bodybuilding benching. And then, I got to 6.5 on every 7 days. And then when I got to 7 and just right at that level, I went to every 10 days. I benched every 10 days. Because I was getting as much sleep as I could, as high quality sleep. And so the thing that had to change in the recovery, the 6 things in recovery, was rest. And rest doesn't mean sleep. Rest means how long between your next stimulation, right? 5 days, 7 days, 10 days. It takes that time for the recovery to kick in. And that means I don't go to the gym but 3 times a month to bench every 10 days. And people want to train more, right? But you train less. But the quality of that and the effort of that go way, way, way up. And that is self-limiting. Hard work is self-limiting. And I've said this many times, but I'll say it again. Saying 2 things is good. If I have you go outside and go for a jog, how far do you think you could get? 5 miles, 10 miles, maybe 26 miles. Maybe you're in really good shape. But if I have you go out, open this door, walk outside, and sprint as hard as you can, give your best effort, I don't know that you'll make it to the end of the parking lot.
Yeah.
Because intensity is self-limiting. And you put these huge loads on, and you can't do it all day long, right? And this is true about training. The higher those loads go, the less training you can do, and the more time in between that you have to have.
Because you're just...
Well, the more important all those recovery aspects become as well.
Sure do.
Because
go ahead.
I think people just underestimate the fact that as a higher performing athlete, you're able to stress the system more than an intermediate would. You know, like you're able to put that red limiter in the red, whereas
learn
like
to play the instrument.
that intermediate couldn't get in the red, no matter how much they wanted to. They don't have the neurology, the software, the whatever, or maybe even the mental capacity to push themselves hard enough into that red zone or whatever. So I think then again, we get back to the quality versus quantity argument. Like, yeah, you're at a higher level now, and sure, you could train more. But what would those training sessions have to look like to facilitate you training more?
Not what they want to do.
Yeah,
most certainly.
Are they productive training sessions that are going to get you the stimulus you want, or are they training sessions that are just going in because you want to train? You know, and this is, again, it comes back to what's your priorities, I guess. But more is not better a lot of the time. Like, better is better.
Well,
more is just more.
Yeah.
Well, the path kind of unveils itself as you go up that mountain, right? The progress stops, and you're like, I like progress. Like, what do I need to do here? And so it will find its way.
Yeah.
You know,
and usually they try more for a while.
Yeah.
And that usually leads to some bad stuff, like injuries and stagnation or regression.
Yeah.
And then eventually they're usually left with the final option, which is less.
Yes.
Because that's the one we don't want to do usually,
You have to do less better.
Yeah.
You have to try harder. You have to put more effort into less. You have to put more weight into less. You have to do less better. And a pivotal thing about moving from beginner to intermediate, intermediate to advanced, advanced to elite is you have to learn the lesson of sacrifice. You got to give things up. If you like to train 5 times a week, too bad. You got to let go. You have to sacrifice some things. And that catches everybody by surprise. What do you mean I got to give up stuff? Well, maybe you got to give up going out drinking with your buddies now. That may happen. Maybe you got to give up chasing girls every Friday and Saturday night. Maybe you got to give up going to night school for a while you peak. Maybe you got to give up things you don't want to give up.
Yeah.
And that becomes a very good conversation to have to yourself early on. If this keeps going and I have to give something up, what am I willing to let go of and what am I not willing to give up? And I think one thing that makes good sense is I'm not willing to give up time with my family, JM. Okay, that's a good thing. I think that's probably good. So if this gets to the point where you need to do something and it comes down to you watching your kid's soccer game or you coming and training, you're going to pick soccer game. It's good to know. Good to know what you won't give up. And it's fine. You don't, being all in means there's nothing I won't give up. I'll give it all up. I'll seek excellence by pouring triple the price into that car and triple the price into getting that goal. And there's nothing I won't give up. I don't know how healthy that is, but I don't know how healthy
is excellence in anything healthy.
I would argue at that point.
No, I don't think so.
My counter to that is that all in thing can be just satisfying their own ego for the things they want to be all in for.
Yeah.
Right. So they'll be all in for not spending time with their kids, but they're not all in for not wasting time, watching fucking Netflix all the time or, nutrition and all the other stuff. They cherry pick their all in. And the great ones get to a point where they realize I'm cherry picking this shit and I need to be all in for the things I don't really want to do. Yeah. And if I do that, I can still be all in with my family and all the other things. Yeah. They're being destructive, thinking that it's constructive when
in hindsight, at a certain point, they could look back and say, I could have done these things and had a better output without having to sacrifice these things, which, to be honest, I just conveniently didn't want to do anyhow. I just used it as the excuse to say, fuck you, I don't want to deal with you, and I'm going to do this instead. You know, and
this is that question that you bring up. I've heard you bring it up before. I think you brought it to me. I don't know. That could that person have been just as successful if they didn't take all those risks, if they didn't sacrifice all that stuff, or was that necessary? Was it necessary to make all those sacrifices? And you're saying that.
Well, I think the answer there is were all the stones unturned? Because if you can say that, like, was that necessary? But the hygiene was asleep and the nutrition and all that was in place, but you lost these other things along the way, but they were all taken care of.
Yeah.
That's a different answer than actually, you know, I was eating like shit. I was doing this. I was doing this. Then that's a different.
Maybe if I had eaten better and bought a new mattress and slept better, I wouldn't have had to give up this other thing.
Yes. Yeah. And most people that get to that point with solid self-reflection can be able to mentor others in better ways than those that haven't.
Yeah.
And most people that get to that level, they fuck some things up. Like, nobody's going to sit there and say, I did it all perfect,
right first time.
They're going to look back and say, yeah, that was just an excuse for me to be a fucking asshole. And, but there's lessons there, you know, that can be passed on and have been passed on since the people that were helping us. You know, we just choose not to listen. You know, the same way people today will choose not to listen. But the message changes generation by generation. That's why I think we have stronger lifters now. You know, is because they are getting a lot of great messages on all these things. I mean, sleep, nutrition. I mean, for powerlifting, that's at a whole nother level it was when I was doing this shit.
I'm sure,
And it wasn't, we kind of knew, but at the same time, it's like, fuck it, a calorie is a calorie. If I'm in a surplus, I'm going to recover, right? And lifters today at the top, they're not like that. You know, it's different. Like, this is a rock. I can control this one. I can turn that over.
What you were saying there about people cherry picking, it reminded me of the conversation we had with Ali Gilbert when she was talking about, like, dealing with clients that want to be on more TRT and stuff all the time because they assume more that's the answer. And she said her first main thing she would say to people is, like, stop using shampoo and soap that has estrogens in it. I can't remember the term she used. Stop eating your food out of plastic Tupperwares and drinking out of plastic and stuff like that. And people won't do that. They just want the extra test in their weekly injection or whatever.
Well, it's easy.
Yeah, and it's like, dude, like, how many low-hanging fruit do you want? You know, to make these improvements that you don't have to give up that stuff, you know, or whatever it might be. And I just think a lot of the time people are missing a lot of low-hanging fruit and they're just not introspective enough to notice. And like you said, maybe they end up giving up things they don't need to give up when really there was a couple of simple life hacks that everyone likes to coin that they could have just done that would have done it for them. That would have been enough, you know.
Or a great number of very, very small ones. I think that's another way to look at some of these things is I can find this one thing that causes a great change, or I can find these 10 things that all make 1/10 of a difference. And that's something that people may not look at. They might look at this one thing and go, well, that's just 1/10. That's not going to get me anywhere. It's not going to do it. No, it's not. Alone, it's not. But with 9 other things that are like it, there's your change right there.
Absolutely. But in that same context, if you offered them a £5 PR towards the £50 PR they want, they'll snap your hand off for that. Context is the same though, right? It's just a marginal victory on the way to the greater end goal.
I don't know about that, right? Because to a lot of people, it's like, fuck the £5. I want the 50.
Okay.
You know the mindset I'm talking about.
I get you.
I'm going to do all this shit for £5. Fuck that. I can just take more tests and get 50. You know, that's a you know, this is a for real mindset.
Yeah.
But you can't.
You can't. That's my point.
So the initial dose that you take, whatever that is, gives you the majority of your results. And then doubling that dose does not give you twice those results.
Not, no.
Well, that goes back to the conversation of when lifters start too soon.
right? Because if that becomes the first major change that they make that has this great result, where are they going to go back, you know, for more? And if that first major change after being stuck for a little while is fixing their nutrition, you know, then that's a big thing. Or not partying with their friends 3 times a week. That's a big thing. And if those can all get hacked with PEDs.
Yeah.
Oh, I took PEDs, but I'm still partying with my friends. I'm still eating like shit. I'm getting strong. Where do you think their first recourse is going to be when they hit that next sticking point?
Yeah, for sure.
I need better TRT. I need Tren, whatever it's going to be.
There's a lot of bad habits that we can get into at the beginning. And that's where someone who's gone past the beginning, into the middle, past the middle, into the advanced, past the advanced, they know all that stuff. They don't know just advanced. They can scale down and go, hey, this is a bad habit you're getting into right here. You probably shouldn't do this. And it takes guidance, and the kind of guidance they're getting is exactly the wrong guidance. It's precisely 180 degrees wrong.
Now, we're also speaking of a weird sport, right? Where genetics matter, a lot of things matter. You can have people that are at the top of the food chain that do everything fucking wrong, and they're still going to break world records. They're still going to win.
Yeah. I mean, but you can say that about a lot of sports.
You can say with every sport, right? But it's more confusing in this sport.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know, because of that, and those outliers, while they're I still believe in looking at patterns from everybody, because you're going to find commonalities amongst everybody at the top. Yeah, there's certain things, genetic outlier, whatever, they're still there. Yeah, and whatever those commonalities are, embrace them. Yeah, it's obvious, sure. Right? They all have that, but it gets tricky when people will aspire for that and think that it's right, but they're not that. Or they don't know if they're that yet or not. They could be, and all the power to them. I mean, I hate those fucking people, but, they're still strong as fuck.
Yeah,
so
you respect the strength, but just because Dan Bell can down 10 Coors Light on a meat day doesn't mean you having a beer is a good thing.
No, but that can be perceived.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is what you should do.
Yeah.
And for most, it's not. For most, there's a lot that they're going to have to do to get to a higher level. Yeah. Some more than others.
And I think you mentioned it earlier, like it's not important to look at what they're doing now, but what were they doing when they were you? What did they, because you're not trying to go from B to F, you're going from B to C. So what did they do when they were at B? If that makes sense, because that's where you are. That's the relevance.
Those transitions are important. And one of the things that I try to stress for people is that this idea of as you transition, you're going to have to think about a plan. You're going to have to plan your recovery. You have to plan recovery. That's one thing that you don't have to do from beginner to middle intermediate. You don't have to plan any recovery. You don't even have to pay attention to it. You can completely ignore it because your built-in capacity is up here and you're still working your way, chewing all this up. And you don't have to think about it. You don't have to plan it. You don't have to change it. But the guy that benches 400 pounds and trains to get to that point and was successful with the recovery program he had may not be successful with that same recovery program when he's benching 500. Because now the training weights all went up. And let's just say that's the only thing that changed. He got stronger. He's doing the same program. But he didn't change anything about his recovery from 3 to 4, and now he's trying to go from 4 to 5. That's not reasonable, right? It's reasonable to go, oh yeah, he would probably need to plan better recovery, right? But we learn early on, I can go from 2 to 3, 3 to 350, right? I get this without ever thinking about my sleep. Hell, I can pull an all-nighter. They don't ever think about that. And so then they think, some people think, most people think, many people think, that I don't ever have to think about recovery. It's just built in. I just won't go to the gym for a couple of days and I'll recover. And then it's not true for advanced people. And that transition from intermediate to advanced there should be some learning there about recovery. And that's when it becomes important. And it's not really important. And you know what else isn't important from beginner to intermediate? whatever program and exercise they're doing, because a program for strength is a program for size, and a program for size is a program for strength at those levels.
Yeah.
So there's a ceiling, there's a point you get to where now you're like, well, you know what, I was just doing bodybuilding. I personally was. And I benched 440. Just bodybuilding. And I did it flat as a board. My first bench press meet. No shirt, no nothing, no wrist straps, no belt, no nothing. In spandex, and just lay down on the bench and benched 440 from bodybuilding. I didn't know anything about leverage or anything. So when someone trains hard at any program, any beginner program, any intermediate program, it will work. The most important thing at that level isn't the sets and reps and numbers, and I don't even pay much attention at the top, but certainly down there, the lesson for us to teach them is effort.
Yeah,
because they will get bigger and they will get stronger, even if that person is doing a strength program or a size program. Muscle responds that way.
Mm-hmm.
And strength and size are interlinked for 80% of our journey. And then the top end, when you really want to get massive and be a bodybuilder and step on stage, or you want to step on a platform and lift some serious weight, okay, then it matters what you do in the gym.
Yeah.
But there's this, and so they get this idea, and they don't get it from nowhere. It's not for nothing that they have the idea that they don't have to pay attention to recovery. It's not for nothing.
I
they
think
learned it.
There's a bigger lesson through all that is all these residual. What's going to residually be there when it's done, right? Because nobody's going to lift big weights forever.
Yeah.
Right. There is an expiration date. Mm-hmm. Now, if you've developed the habits of proper hydration, proper sleep, proper nutrition, how to do accessory exercises where you're not hurting yourself, mm-hmm. Doing them for maximal muscle stimulus. And then when that time comes where you can no longer do that, you've already ingrained a lot of lifestyle habits that will lead to a better, more fulfilling life as you age. Than the person who turns 40, has a heart attack, mm-hmm. not doing anything, and then now they have to develop the habit of hydration, sleep, recovery, and all that, and it's not there. Mm-hmm. All those little things that lead into recovery are residual. Yes. They will, mm-hmm. If going back in time, when bodybuilders retire, they always look really good after they retire. They mm-hmm. downsize, they're healthy and all that. Powerlifters that retire drinking beer and look like shit, right? So why? Mm-hmm. All those little habits that were developed, they're residually still kind of staying in that lifestyle, just at lower levels. Now, nobody wants to think about this as they're coming up through, but it is important to realize that that groundwork for that period is being laid there to where getting enough fluid's not a big deal. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or tell somebody that's never done that's 40, that's never exercised their whole life, you need to drink 8 glasses of water, whatever the fuck they're going to say. I can't do that. I drink Coke.
That's why I like to kind of like, if someone asks me like, why do you not berate clients, but why do you talk about these things with clients so much or chase them up and stuff? Because I don't know, the way I look at it is that this whole experience is actually about self-mastery. And that's not just in terms of your movement quality in the gym and the things that people will jump to, but mastery of self in your day-to-day habits and stuff like that. Because, if you, like you said, if you do self-master, which I think this whole gym journey, career, whatever you want to call it, teaches you, then there's a lot of good things that come from that outside of the gym and even once the gym is gone. Whereas if you don't look at the gym through that lens, for want of a better way, it's very easy to come out on the other end almost worse than you went in, just injured and broken, right? Whereas you can come out on the other, if you look at it as an opportunity to hone yourself, your lifestyle, your habits, your behaviors, then you can come out with it, even before it's done, your life quality overall.
Yes.
Is going to be, and that's the lens that I choose or like to look at it through, because it is about lifting weights, but it also isn't.
Yeah, and you may come out broken, right? But if the mental health is there, the hydration is there, it's easier to deal with coming out broken.
Oh yeah, but you
because
could have broken yourself doing anything, right?
Well,
you could have been a professional video gamer and come out with carpal tunnel.
Well, it's easier to be broken and not drunk all the fucking time and stoned and everything else. So
if you can only ever control the controllables, right? There's always a risk with anything that you do. Even sitting on your ass for too long comes with risk, but we do the best we can to control them. And at the end of them, like you said, we come out with habits and hopefully a different perspective on life that's helped us realize ways to make ourselves better, especially, like we said, in kind of today's society, just the principle of committing to something long-term and delayed gratification. If you get nothing more out of it than that, that usually is a pretty important life lesson, I think.
How would you wrap this up?
Yeah, sure. So I think that's important to think about. And of course, I always talk about it, right? I talk about linking up what we do in the gym to what we do outside the gym. And that's what you were talking about, right? And there's an opportunity, just to use a word that you used earlier, opportunity. There's an opportunity for us to attempt self-mastery in this really strange environment. And that opportunity comes up. And opportunity for challenge and to learn how to face challenge and to, you're asking me to sum this up, to do hard things, right? And to choose hard things. And that opportunity exists here in crystal clear terms, man. It's just 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 200 pounds is always 200 pounds. And where you are in relationship to that, it's not, 200 pounds is not heavy. And it is not light. You are in relation to it either strong, and then it will feel light to you. You would call it light, or you're weak and it becomes heavy. It's just 200 pounds and you're just you. It's that relationship that exists. And it's always in here to see what that relationship is. You can always come in here and find something out about yourself if you have the awareness to do that and the intention to do it. And I'll say one more thing about that, then intention. And I came up on intensity, and intensity is super important. And we talked about how intensity is self-limiting, and I was driven to more and more and more intensity. And sometimes even in programming journals and stuff, you'll see intensity is just a load. Yeah, it's just load. How much weight? But I'm talking about intensity of effort. And so to wrap the final thing that we talked about that I want to say is there's an argument to be said for we have to increase our intensity. And it's a good argument. I'm going to interject this argument that there is a difference between intensity and intention. When you come in here and you have an intention, that intention is, in my own opinion, as important as the intensity with which you do something. So in this adventure, in this opportunity to come into the weight room and experience ourselves in a certain way, this way or that way, to look for more or to back away, or to just get through. There's this intensity is important, and we need to consider that. But sometimes what doesn't go as is not as emphasized as much is why? Why are you doing this? What are you in here for? Why are you doing that exercise? What is your intention with medium grip military press as opposed to narrow grip military press? Why did you choose that? What did you intend that to do? And these are all super important questions. And then finally, to wrap it up, the intention of a rep, the intention of going from point A to point B. Everybody starts off and they learn bar path. Move the bar from here to here. And that's a good way to teach kids. Pull the dumbbell from there to there. And that will activate the biceps. And then the second thing you teach them is kind of to feel that muscle doing that. Where's it burning? You feel something burning? You don't feel it in your shoulder. You feel it in here, right? Let's feel that muscle. And you get in and then there's a third place to be, which is about inhabiting a way of experiencing yourself in the workout. Whereas I'm not moving it from A to B, and I'm not just feeling the burn. I'm experiencing the shortening and lengthening of that muscle in a way that is more than just getting it up and down. And I intended to get something out of that. What did I intend to get out? And when I go into the gym, now what I intend to get that experience. I want to feel that happening. And I want to feel myself get to the point where I start to want to quit. I don't want to do a couple more reps, right? And I make myself do something I don't really want to do. And those are all things that I think we have talked about today in some way or shape or form. And are all super important. And maybe we skirted the issue of what normal training talk is. But I'm comfortable with that, because if someone thinks about what we've said today and they can bring that into the gym, I think everything that we talked about is applicable to any athlete or strength or bodybuilder or anything. I don't think there's anything that was specifically only for this group. I think we hit things that if somebody wants to, they can mine this conversation, which I don't know if it was very entertaining or not. It may not have been entertaining, but I do think that you guys put in plenty of food for thought, ideas to consume, and then either make something out of it or not. And so that's what I'll say about that.
Well said.
What is the best way for people to follow you? Is it still your Instagram?
I do Instagram. It's JM Blakley. And I have a Facebook and or a YouTube also. My YouTube is capital M, the numeral 7, JM7, THLEVEL, JM 7th level. And the THLEVEL is lowercase, but JM 7th level. And I'm planning on making a bunch of exercise videos very similar to what we did today. General garden variety. This is how I teach this. This is how I teach how to do a bicep curl. But this is how I teach to do a concentration curl. And this is how I teach to do a cable curl. And I'm going to just go through every exercise I know and teach it to somebody in a real situation. And those will be up there throughout the next couple months. I'm going to try to put everything I know about doing exercises on that.
That's great. I want to thank you for coming out again.
Thanks, Dave.
It's always a pleasure having you out. It's a good time. And with that in mind, we're done.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Tom.
Merrick Health is a premium telehealth platform specializing in hormone optimization and preventative medicine. Are you looking to optimize your health in and out of the gym, improve recovery, sex drive, and quality of life? Have you tried speaking to your health professional about this and have gotten the cold shoulder, stereotyped, or just told it's part of getting older? You just go to merrickhealth.com/table talk, and you can create your own lab, or you can take labs that we've had set up for them, which are based upon the same labs that I've been doing over the last 15 years. Or you can use their guided optimization. With this, they'll put you in touch with a patient care coordinator, which is actually pretty cool because you get to sit down and speak to somebody that can understand what you're looking for from hormone optimization and the preventative medicine standpoint. After that conversation, they'll determine which labs that you should and which tests you should have done, and then from there, get the labs done. They'll review those labs with you and put you in touch with one of their hormone optimization specialists that can determine which supplementation that you should use over the counter or prescription. merrickhealth.com/table talk. The discount code is table talk. All right, guys, if you like the Table Talk podcast, then you're going to love the crew. If you're struggling with trying to get through a sticking point, you're trying to figure some specific aspect of your training out that you
just can't dial in. You're dealing with injuries. You're trying to figure out how to better optimize your training. All the stuff you're seeing on social media is confusing, and all you need is a little guidance and support, or just somebody to look at your lifts to make sure that they're either heading in the right direction, or if there's a weak point in the lift, they can point out what that weak point is. Well, that's what we have the crew for. So when you join the crew, you get an extra Table Talk podcast each month called the Crewcast. You also get access to our Discord community, which has a training Q&A, form checks with top coaches, mindset section, nutrition, training logs, programs, over 30 ebooks, plus exclusive ebooks just for the crew, webinars, lectures, seminars, giveaways ranging from full strength equipment. We've given away many yoke bars this year. We've given away actually pieces of strength equipment as well as accessory items, and you get exclusive crew discounts. So go to the link in the description that says join the crew, click it, join now, and start getting stronger today. Elite FTS was founded in 1998 with the aim to live, learn, and pass on. We've done this through training-related content that allows you to become the strongest athlete and coach that you can. Over the past 2 decades, actually 2.5 decades, we've published more complementary training media than anybody else in the industry. When you look at the number of articles, the Q&As, the blogs, the videos, the podcasts, there's over 1 million pages of content that we've put out there. We've been able to do this through your support of Elite FTS. So when you purchased Elite FTS strength equipment, bands, accessories, gear, apparel, or anything through the site, you directly help support the content that we put out, which in turn helps support other people on their journey of becoming stronger and better coaches. So stronger athletes and better coaches, which encompasses the aim and the vision to live, learn, and pass on. So I thank you for the support that you've been giving for the past 25 years and encourage you to keep supporting Elite FTS into the future so we can all help more people become better and stronger. Discount code Table Talk for 10% off your first order.
Today's episode is brought to you by Element, a tasty electrolyte drink mix with everything that you need and nothing that you don't. In other words, no sugar, no artificial coloring, no artificial ingredients, no gluten, no fillers, and no BS. With the Element, I love the watermelon. The watermelon tastes freaking awesome. I drank 1 pack every day, no matter what. People that train out here, it's sitting out here for them all the time. The boxes don't last very long. Right now, Element is offering Table Talk listeners a free sample pack with any purchase. That's 8 single-serving packages free with any Element order. Get yours at drinkelement.com/tabletalk. The deal is only available through the link in the description. The other thing is, if you don't like it, you can just give it away to a salty friend and Element will give you a 100% refund. No risk, money back guarantee. Head over to drinkelement.com/tabletalk.